Gilbertson is highlighting the sign-in sheet by grabbing it and showing it around. So it is 3 o'clock, so I see everybody that will be in attendance is here for the board. So the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen to that.
Now we are into the roll call members, and that goes to Larry.
Okay, Cope.
Here.
O'Shea. Here. Driscoll.
Here.
McGregor.
Here.
O'Lally.
Here.
Young. Mack.
Here.
Klein.
Here.
Kerr.
Here. Everyone here except Young. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. The board cannot take an official action on any item not on the agenda. Is there approval for the agenda?
I'm gonna suggest that we swap the order of items 15 and 16. You know, I'm not sure on 16, the discussion on Attorney General opinion, but there's some chance that might affect our discussion on the prior item, so.
Us to swap 15 and 16.
Beyond that, I would move to approve.
Second.
Seconded by McGregor. Motion was to approve the agenda with the swap of item 15 becoming item 16 and item 16 becoming item 15. Discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion on the motion, all those in favor state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Item number 4 is the conflict of interest disclosure. If any board member has a conflict of interest, this is the time to state it. Does anyone have a conflict of interest? Now stating, I'm going to state this, and I will let the board define it if I should abstain. Item number 7, the funding request for resilient headwaters and holistic riverscape restoration planning, $75,000 by the Black Hills Watershed Collaborative. One of the main people that might be presenting today is my wife's cousin. And so if the board feels like, I feel like this could be a partial conflict of interest depending on which view people have, and I will gladly abstain from item 7 other than.
Do you like her?
I like my wife, my cousin, you know.
I don't see it as a conflict. It's not a.
If the board doesn't see it as a conflict, but I will be known that he is part of that collaborative. Okay. Item number 5, approval of a minutes from the March 10th meeting.
Move to approve?
Move to approve.
Just have one typo in there regarding the rear door. The word is read on the agenda, or the minutes. It's item number 19 on the minutes.
Not the rear door.
Yeah.
And just want to make sure that is barred open for anyone with a handicap might be able to use that.
Okay. Does the approver take the friendly amendment to?
10-4.
Okay, is there a second to the approval of the minutes?
Second?
Seconded by Klein. Discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor state by stating aye.
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 Okay, Item number 6 is the treasurer's report, and that goes back to our admin.
Okay, so page 6 is the statement of the bank accounts that we have. And a note, I can't recall if this was in place in March, but after the DANR funding was signed off and approved, with consultation with the chair, we opened up an account at the bank for the 319 funds, and I've deposited West Dakota's share, $133,333, into that account, which will be used to draw the funds as that project moves forward. So very similar to what we did, you guys did with the Water Smart grant, that money was just put in there and then we're drawing out of that. So that is there. Then the Raymond James accounts, and a total at the bottom there of $1,050,792.49. On page 7 is just a listing of in the middle column is a listing of expenses for the various projects and things listed on the left-hand side that have gone out from the last meeting to the accounting for getting ready for this meeting. And then in the far column on the right is the year total, January 1 to, in this case, May 4. And I don't think there was anything here that I needed to note, unless anybody has any questions on that. And then on page 8 is the project summary. And the shaded items are active projects. The one thing I did make a change on is under the 2024 projects, the BAR Water Management Modeling of Deerfield Pactola, the total or grant amount that was listed in there was $359,000 something. That's what's been there the whole time. And Miguel and I went through and filled out the financial reports for the feds just last week. It was in on about the 30th of last month. And that amount showing as balance remaining was quite large. It said $125,000, and we didn't have $125,000. So I looked back in the contracts, and what the difference was that the Corps of Engineers came back like 3 or 4 months into this project and took $95,110 for administrative costs. And the documents that we have and the contracts that we have from the Corps said that the project total was what I put in here now, $262,291. So I just made that adjustment in there because that $95,110 is essentially not even in the budget of anything to do with this project. So I've removed that out of there. Okay, so project obligations at this point, at the very bottom of figure 2 is $346,877.64. And figure 3 is the timeline, and nothing has changed on that now since the first of the year. So that is the financial report. I'll entertain any questions anybody sees. Yes.
Sorry. On page 6, the Black Hills Community Bank Water Smart account shows $11,654 in it.
Yes.
How does that relate to on page 8 to the $38,293 balance remaining for?
That is in the federal account that we've never had in our budget.
The 38 is federal?
Total of federal and this. So that line you're talking about in the project management, that's $38,293 includes this
Okay.
$11,000.
Okay.
And the rest of that is sitting in the federal side, that when a bill comes in, I request whatever the percentage share is from the federal side, And so that number's going down, and then this number is going down.
So all bills to date have been paid?
All bills today have been paid, and the total is listed there. Yeah, $223,997.05 has been paid out. Yeah.
So far, future discussions that 11,654 could conceivably be charged against the 27,000 more that they're seeking?
I don't know anything about that. I don't know how that's, if
Well, we can wait until we get to
Yeah.
that one then. The other thing I had was on, let's see, page 7, legal fees, 2,500. That's the check we gave to Gunderson Palmer to resolve that
and they.
$4,000 plus
and they
bill,
cashed
and they
it,
took
yes.
it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Move approval of the treasurer's report.
Move approval by McGregor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead, Roy.
Both say for the second. Discussion on the motion. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor of the treasurer's report state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay. Moving on to item 7, funding requests for resilient headwaters and holistic riverscape restoration planning. The request is for $75,000. The Black Hills Watershed Collaborative. Lori Brown will be presenting that, and it is going to be presented. So I will turn the floor to the collaborative to present.
All right, thanks for having us today. I'm Hans Stephenson from the Black Hills Watershed Collaborative. This is Lori Brown. We'll be co-presenting today about our request for funding. We're a fairly new group. We're a partnership between agencies and non-profit conservation groups here in the Black Hills, who all aligned around the idea that we need to do more to maintain our starting primarily with our headwater streams. They're as you'll see in a second, they're in tough shape. And so there's been some developments in the last couple of years where there's been more and more interest in working in those areas, primarily started by the Forest Service and the Northern Hills Ranger District. Those folks have been really good at inviting in partners. That's how I got involved. That's how Lori got involved. And that collaboration and partnership is the essence of what got us all here today. We all collaborated on some projects that you'll see here in this presentation. And we all kind of realized the urgency of doing this work and the importance of doing this work. And that's what we're here to talk to you about today. If you can go to the next slide there, please. So what we know, in terms of what we have out there for challenges, we've got, especially in the upper Rapid Creek basin, we have a lot of poor riparian condition. All the areas adjacent to the stream and stream bank, we've got a lot of incision, we've got a lot of loss of willows and other riparian habitat, reduced storage function from the natural wetland function and hydrologic function. You'd see there very simplified systems up there. We also lack a lot of comprehensive assessment. We know what we know, but we don't really know it completely. And there's a lot of knowledge gaps that need to be filled in to help provide direction in where this work should get done. And as there are projects already ongoing, unfortunately, a lot of them are what our friend Chris and partner Chris has described as random acts of restoration. Lots of people interested in doing it, but it's this scattershot approach that aren't tied together into any strategy that might have the most beneficial long-term outcome. And so that's part of what we're trying to do by getting this collaborative together, but also in asking for this assessment, is bring all these partners together, align our priorities, and work in a targeted way that has the best outcome, the best return on investment. We also know that we've got a lot of changes in terms of our precipitation pattern, lots of variability there that also creates some challenges for these systems. Lori, do you have anything to add there? No. Okay. All right, next slide, please. So like I said, a current condition in a lot of our headwater streams, you know, we're looking a lot initially at the upper Rapid Creek Basin. We hope to eventually have success there and keep expanding throughout the Black Hills. A lot of the work that's been done to date has already been done in the upper Rapid Creek Basin, and we want to just keep working on that. We know it's an important watershed. We also know that that upper Rapid Creek watershed is, in terms of the Forest Service's condition assessments, the least, or it's the worst condition in the Black Hills. But it also serves a lot of people in the Black Hills, so it's an important watershed for our communities as well. We know there's a lot of channel incision, disconnected floodplains. Only 4% of the watersheds in that upper Rapid Creek Basin have healthy riparian and wetland vegetation. We've got a lot of increased wildfire risk, and we've got a lot of diminished natural water storage capacity, meaning these are incised streams. The water's not slowing down, percolating into the ground. We're not building up any groundwater or natural storage because of these simplified systems. And we've also started to realize the biological components that have been removed from a lot of our streams can help add complexity and create diversity and complexity that keeps those systems healthy. Part of that natural biological component are beavers that were here historically. Our beaver populations are at an almost all-time low, if not an all-time low. And so we know that's an issue as well. Next slide. So these broken systems, this is a picture here on the left from Silver Creek, which is, this is just above one of our work sites. And you can see eroding banks, a lot of encroachment from non-native grasses. There's not a lot of riparian grass or willow. And you see that in a lot of the systems, like an unhealthy meadow. We've got a very simple straight line that's cutting down the valley floor. There's nothing really slowing that water down. You've got a lowering of groundwater, increased sedimentation, increased temperatures, water quality, water storage issues across the board, conifer encroachment, just not a very tied together and very healthily functioning watershed. Next slide. So what do we know? Well, we do have some different tools and data sets out there, but a lot of them aren't tied together in a way that can really inform our work in terms of prioritizing and aligning the work so that we get the biggest return on that. But we do have people, like I said, Forest Service. This is one of our partners at the Northern Hills Ranger District who's been really instrumental in getting this work and demonstrating its ability to impact change in these watersheds. So we have, local knowledge like Matt Scott at the Forest Service. We have some different tools that are available through the Forest Service. We've got a lot of anecdotal knowledge, traditional ecological knowledge. Biggest thing right now I feel like we have is we've got a lot of momentum. We've got a lot of groups that are joining the effort between Black Hills Fly Fishers, Mule Deer Foundation, National Wild Turkey Federation, Game and Fish is involved, South Dakota Game Fish and Parks, Forest Service, and we're getting more and more interest at any of our volunteer days from people from across different groups. And so I think we can capitalize on that momentum to do a lot more of this work that makes, a key part of our watershed much, much healthier. So, what do we need? Well, we need to create this prioritization, and we need to know where should we focus our work. And that's kind of the core of what this assessment would do. That prioritization would allow us to keep collaborating, put our efforts together, then we can start making more science-based decisions. We know that this work works, but we need to know where should we do it so that we are working in a place that doesn't require, that's what I'm looking for, the lower lift with the biggest benefit. Some of these things, if you go and you work and put all your effort into the wrong place, you might be there longer and maintaining it more when you could have worked a couple valleys over and got a lot shorter recovery time and a lot more benefit. So we want to make sure we have the best analysis possible to make sure we're working in the right priority areas with the best science behind it in terms of recovery potential. We know the restoration solutions in these upper headwaters can be low-tech process-based restoration, which is what we've used to date. And we have that solution, we just need to know where to do it. It's very adaptive, it's very cost effective, just basic language, a lot of low-tech work can be done for around $100,000 or less per mile, whereas a highly engineered machine-based type project might be $1 million a mile. And your costs are a lot higher for the type of work that we want to do. And hopefully then our outcome is better water quality, quantity, and consistency. Cool. All right, so we've kind of already laid out, do you have anything to add? I'm sorry, Lori.
No, you're
Okay.
on a roll.
All right. So our assessment, why now? Like I said, we have a lot of momentum, but we need to identify the areas that have the greatest need, greatest potential, and the greatest common interest. So essentially, we're looking to the experts to help us figure out all these gaps in our knowledge and put us on a track to get this work done. There's a lot of us that are involved in this. We don't want to sit around and talk about this stuff. We want to get out and actually do it. That's why we've spent hundreds of hours already volunteering on these projects. And taking advantage of that momentum and the support of our agency partners needs this scientific-based assessment to tell us where to go and where to do the work.
A big part of this assessment is this concept of tying our ridge lines to our valley bottoms. So we're not just talking about that physical stream channel, it's about better understanding our uplands and how our uplands influence stream health, and how we can pair conservation efforts and conservation dollars together. An example of that is like our elk herds in the Black Hills, which tend to decimate our aspen and our willow. And Game Fish and Parks seems committed to adding another 1,000 elk in the Black Hills. And we need to incorporate these resource concerns to better manage our riparian bottoms and improve these bottoms for a diversity of stakeholders and species in our landscape.
So the assessment, we kind of talked about the general idea of what it is, but the deliverables from the assessment, we get some GIS analysis, we get some actual field work done to create a characterization of our watershed and the areas that have, that creates a ranking and prioritization based on these different physical and biological characteristics, classifying those different reaches with condition and their potential to be restored, so we can start aligning where we want to work. And then we can use a kind of collaborative approach to create that prioritization, so all of our partners are on board, we're all aligned and able to get the work done. Get a plan to keep this work going. It's happening now, but this will allow it to continue at scale, and at scale in the best places possible. And then we're able to, like I said, I've already said we've aligning ourselves, but it really makes a big difference when you've got everybody working together rather than small independent projects happening here and there that don't really line up to a quantifiable benefit.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Right now we have a unique opportunity to scale this work. The Forest Service completed a NEPA analysis for most of the Upper Rapid Creek watershed, which includes about 450 miles of perennial stream. And we need to know where we can best work in those 450 miles. So the permitting and the NEPA clearance is done, and our conservation partners and agency staff are just waiting for the identification of these best opportunities, so that we can start to tackle the degradation at an appropriate scale and start to impact 10, 15, 20 miles a year, not 1,000 linear feet a year.
And it's important to note too that as this collaborative and group of partners has been formed, a lot of this assessment we're already being asked by the Forest Service, like people like Matt Scott in the Northern Hills Ranger District, they're already looking to us for this direction and asking us because of their diminished capacity. They don't have the man hours anymore to devote to things like this on a realistic or with enough capacity to do this assessment. They want to do the work, but they can't do all this assessment and analysis. So without further assessment, we're almost out of permitted miles of stream. We've got partners that are going to do some work under some tribal agreements this summer, 6 miles of stream work this summer, 8 miles next summer. Beyond that though, there's not a lot in the pipeline. And so that's why we want this assessment to happen, so that we can keep that pipeline full and these projects happening. Without this type of assessment, we're gonna run out of that ability to maintain these projects, but also maintain them in a way that's healthy moving forward, so we're delivering the best projects we can. Okay. So like I said, we're already doing some of this work, just so you're familiar with it. This is the deliverable. We want this assessment so we can keep doing more of the work. This is some photos from Silver Creek, where we've done a fair amount of work with volunteer labor, as well as Montana Conservation Corps crews last summer. And there's 100 and some structures at Silver Creek already. This is a tributary near Rochford. We've used the low-tech process-based restoration, simulating natural, things like beaver dams, but adding woody components and complexity that helps slow the water down, capture sediment. The site's already capturing sediment. We're already seeing, a lift of that incision in some of these areas, as well as healthy riparian vegetation returning, and we're starting to see some of those natural processes take back over. And so by mimicking nature, we can give it a little bit of shove, maintain it for a little while, and then hopefully it becomes self-sustaining, tied together in a much more healthy way than just essentially a drainage ditch that just keeps cutting deeper and deeper and deeper into the valley floor. Okay, so we already know slowing down the water and collecting the floodplains, that helps us all for a number of reasons, for communities, groundwater, flood mitigation, fire breaks, cattle, wildlife, they all benefit from this type of work. We'll show a couple more slides. Here's one slide. This is right at the Silver Creek base of an old mine site, as well as some other historic disturbances. This was in 2023. And the next slide, if you go, this is the same spot in 2025. Seeing a lot of recruitment of riparian vegetation, and we've seen a lot of sediment starting to be collected in this particular area, so that stream is starting to come back out of that ditch that it's stuck in. And a couple more. Greens Gulch, a little tributary, kind of the slowing down and spreading out of the water. You go to the next slide, you can see the recovery of the riparian vegetation. You feel the sponginess, a lot of water reconnecting there. So this is what we want to see throughout more of our upland streams, rather than the really eroded, incised ditches. More water on the landscape. And then final slide. So we already have, like I said, quite a few partners. We want to continue that partnership and capture that momentum while it's still here to get more of this work done. We need to tie all these different parts together with kind of the roadmap to make sure that we're working in the best place possible. And that's where we invite you guys to be a partner with us to make sure that this work continues in a way that's not only successful, but has the greatest reward for everyone that lives in our community in the Black Hills. Anything to add, Laura? Okay.
Any questions from directors? Directors?
A few slides back, you said this is the deliverable. I thought we were paying for a plan, so are we actually paying for the work?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. That's
so
nice.
when you said deliverable, what did...
Well, what I meant there is like a transition from, you're helping us get this plan in place, and we're helping to continue our work. We want to keep working, and so we're going to deliver to you, work. Once we get this assessment, we're not going to sit on it. It's not something that we are hoping to just, this is a great information to have. We're hoping for that assessment to drive the process forward in terms of the work that we can deliver back to you.
So we're paying for a plan, though. How does that? You're already doing this. It appears. I guess I'm trying to figure out what we're paying for, how that's going into this.
So the work that we've done to date has been very piecemeal. It's based off of best guesses by the agency staff who have experience on this landscape. And that's not a sustainable or cost-effective path forward, and that's not something we can do at a meaningful scale. So the photos you saw of Silver Creek and Gimlet Creek are great starting points, and we now need to take this work into a more informed and educated framework that is informed by science, data, metrics, so that we can have these clear outcomes and objectives. So it's about taking this work that we've done that makes us feel good and inspire us and turn it into something that is a more formal foundation for restoration outcomes.
I could add to that too, Lori. That's exactly right. So from the agency perspective, you know, these guys have been great. There's several people.
You should say your name for the.
My name's Chuck Wardhorst. I'm fisheries research biologist with Game Fish and Parks. So at this point, you have a lot of people doing this kind of work in different places. So it might be a hydrologist from Mystic, a grazing biologist from Custer National Forest, a forester out of this forest. Game and Fish is coming at it from habitat side, fisheries side, but there is no unified vision, I guess. We're all bought into this stuff. What these guys have been doing that folks like me have really appreciated is like helping everybody to row in the same direction. And a lot of times it comes down to having overlapping coverage, you know, permitting priorities, direction from different agencies. And so something like this seems like it would be helpful to have everybody rowing in the same direction. So besides, you know, all the great stuff they showed, I can tell you, I consulted on a corporation who's doing work on, so we have Whitewood. We are doing work on properties we own because we didn't have unified coverage at the time we permitted them. So we're doing work on Cascade, Spring Creek. Next year will be Middle Fork Box Elder Creek. Where it is, oh, Castle. So we're operating on our property. You got one person from a ranger district who's working where they have coverage, where we have coverage. So far what these guys have been providing is, you know, helping everyone to row in the same direction, which is where we'll pick up speed, I think.
Well, don't get me wrong, I sound kind of negative, I'm just trying to,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
appreciate you guys coming and doing this, it looks like you're doing great work.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
just
it
trying
is-
to I'm seeing different things than what I saw, what I read here. And so I'm trying to figure out, well, what's this, when you're done with, you know, you get this grant and you're done, are you gonna hand us a plan and say, okay, here's what we came up with?
Pretty much, yeah. It'll
Okay.
be all of the data, the assessment, and then the restoration plan that is informed by the stakeholder groups. An assessment will only get you so far if you don't have this diverse buy-in from all of these stakeholder groups, like the sportsmen and the grazing associations and the communities. So there are two kind of primary deliverables in the grant itself, and that is the analysis and assessment, and then the development of an actual strategy for implementation.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I got more questions, but
Yeah.
I'll back off for now and let somebody else.
Go ahead. I got
Well-
it written down.
No, you go ahead, I wanna hear some more discussion first.
Well, I think it's an admirable effort, you know, I think that those BDAs have a real potential application. They work similar and maybe differently than just putting a fence around the riparian area, but that works pretty good too. I've seen that in action as well. So don't get me wrong either, I think it's a really good idea, but I have a number of questions. So don't be depressed. First off, how was the budget that you have put forward developed? You know, what kind of scope of work do you have that can show us what this study really is gonna do? You know, is there a map of the project area that might encompass, you know, these watersheds that are gonna be assessed? It's unclear to me what partner contributions are really being applied to this grant. In the documents in the packet on page 14, it says Black Hills Fly Fishers is gonna put a contribution of $5,000 up. And the Community Foundation is sponsoring some efforts here, around $30,000. It includes a project coordinator, but then we also have a project coordinator identified in that overall $75,000, so I'm a little confused on what that means. And it'd be really helpful if we had a tabular budget that identified, like we have on our website, you know, really the specifics of the budget, you know, what's being done, what part are we being asked to pay for, what exactly are we being asked to pay for as a board, who's making financial contributions to the assessment work, because it sounds like a lot of these partners are gonna use the assessment, and then they're gonna do other things afterwards, so it really is not applicable to the financial benefits, you know, towards completing the assessment. So to me, the budget needs to be, I guess, clarified before I can have a real understanding of what we're being asked for. Because right now, to me, what it sounds like is we're being asked to pay for a study that we don't even know the scope of work, what it consists of, and we don't exactly know how it's gonna be bid. You've got Anabranch Solutions or some other similar vendor, but we don't see the scope of work. We don't even know what they're doing. So I'm pretty uncomfortable at this point, even though I support the idea. I think it needs a lot more clarification for me.
Well, the geographic scope is the Upper Rapid Creek watershed. So all of those subbasins that make up that basin, the whole watershed.
So how much of that is in Pennington County and how much of it moves out? That's where a map would be
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah. Some of it is in Lawrence County, and we can exclude that portion from the assessment. But we would prefer to do the entire basin all at one time.
Is anybody actually paying for anything as an assessment except for what you're asking for the board?
The Community Foundation is prepared to provide additional funding depending on what you guys may or may not be comfortable providing. So we're still in the early stages of lining up funders. But we met with them last week and they were enthusiastic to provide additional funding support as needed.
Any other questions?
Well, other than that, I really need to see a tabular budget to understand what's going on and to see a scope of work of what we're being asked to pay for.
Well, I agree with Director Koth, and the 30,000, is that cash or is that an in-kind contribution or,
It's cash, yes.
okay.
As is the
So you're-
$5,000 from the fly
So
fishing.
you've got our contribution, if we do it with 75,000, 30,000, then so 110,000. One thing when I first started looking at this, and you guys spoke at our last meeting too, is I couldn't find any information on your organization. I did web searches, I called the Secretary of State. You're not listed as a nonprofit. That makes me a little uncomfortable that there's no minutes to your meetings. I don't know, do you have a board of directors, or how do we track what look at your track record of what you've been doing?
We are fairly new. We do have a fiscal sponsorship with the Community Foundation, and we're under their 501c3, and we made a decision earlier this year as we were starting this to get moving in a more formal direction than the loose collaboration of partners that did the volunteer work initially. After talking with the Community Foundation, that we could focus on, by going under their umbrella to start, focus on working on the work rather than spending a lot of time on administration until we can build up a track record in terms of what we've done. And instead of doing a bunch of administrative stuff first, we were hoping to take advantage of the momentum and keep working to get things like the assessment done, and rather than all the other stuff. And then as we built up our success rate, we would transition away from our fiscal sponsorship with the Community
It sounds like you
Foundation.
know what you're doing, but we don't.
Sure. Yeah.
When I scan in the QR code here, I get they ask for donations, and that's all I found, so that's why I was.
Yep.
And then
I did get the website up today. Like I said, we are just getting started, but
But you also need a signature page according to our process, and there's no signature page on this application that I saw.
I guess I wasn't sure what a signature page was exactly.
Well, we have to know who's responsible,
Oh.
who's signing the contract.
If you look on our website, there are guidelines on how to request funding from us and what all we need to see in a funding proposal and then ultimately in an agreement.
So there's a lot of details, and I don't want to nitpick, but some of this land is it going to be privately owned land?
The assessment will cover both public and private land in the
Yeah.
basin.
This may come up later in the meeting, but I don't know if we're allowed to fund something that, unless the private owner contributes to the effort somehow. So I'll just throw that out there. That may be something that's kind of tough to deal with, annoying to deal with.
Question on the assessment that you're doing. Is there a quantitative analysis afterwards of the effectiveness of your efforts?
That's, like, I know Chuck with the game and fish, that's the part of this that we're building out, like I know Chuck is looking into monitoring more of those types of things, like temperature control. There is, at Silver Creek, there is some ongoing research in terms of how much sediment is being captured and riparian vegetation recovery and that sort of thing. So that is something that we want to continue to build up so that we have, you know, that out there and not just, you know, take our word for it. So that's something that is definitely being
Yeah,
worked
so
on.
Chuck again. So the state and federal agencies are all very interested in assigning real numbers, dollars and cents values to these practices. There's a lot of people doing it, and it's a real new discipline of restoration. What we're kind of waiting for collectively, so there's several folks involved from different state and federal agencies. We want to tie numbers to this stuff. We also need a project to evaluate. So that's kind of the thing. And a lot of those agencies have expended a lot of resources on requiring the instruments and the budgeted time to evaluate them. So yeah, in order for all the agencies to stay bought in, we definitely need to assign hard numbers to this stuff. Everybody knows it does good things, but I need like acre feet of water retention time, inundation, maps and stuff. But between me, the forest, some other federal outfits, been amassing all of the tools needed to really quantify all this stuff. And that's not unique to us, that's the West. I mean, this stuff has changed so fast. Started, in Utah, and then like wildfire in Idaho, down in Colorado. New Mexico is one of the biggest, but nobody has hard numbers yet, just because tying all these pieces together and assigning this into one discipline of restoration, yeah, no one has quantified that stuff yet. We're very excited, not just me, multiple federal partners, everybody's rearing to assign dollars and cents values to this stuff though, because it's worth dollars and cents, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's ecosystem services, so.
I mean, visually you see it has an impact, but how much and everything, that's.
Yeah, so what I want to know is if Silver Creek creates 2 CFS of late season water above Pactola, what does that mean multiplied times these other watersheds? And then, which projects are the low hanging fruit and a value, like that's kind of what's missing. If we know, here's these few little headwaters and each one of those is going to provide us another 1 CFS of water in August base flow coming into Pactola, that's one more coming out at the bottom, in theory. So, yeah, so assigning dollars and cents values to all these services is high on the list of every state and federal agency in the West right now.
Okay.
Ron had a question, and then I'll swing to you, Jay.
This is just another one on a follow-up of the scope of work. Does that scope of work that hopefully we're gonna see strictly focus on this assessment? Or does it also have a identified way or mechanisms that are being suggested, like Mr. Mordorf was talking about in terms of monitoring? Because the brief literature I read, there's a lot of different kinds of monitoring that can be evaluated, and looking at the balance between increase in transpiration versus wetted area, of the hyporheic zone and the extent of the hyporheic zone and how much water is really flowing through there, and then whether there is really late season additions to surface flow or whether that's not the case for the geology that we have. So is that part of the whole deal that this assessment and plan will lay out?
Yes, yes. In order to, or before we ever implement projects, we have to know what our unique and clearly defined goals are, and then we have to develop what metrics we're gonna monitor to see if we're moving towards those goals or away from those goals. And part of that monitoring is also based on what's of highest value to the stakeholder group. We can pick whatever. If we wanna monitor fish, that's great for fish, but if that doesn't represent the diverse stakeholders, it's only one metric. And so part of that restoration strategy that will come out of this is what are those tangible indicators to monitor that apply to a broad suite of stakeholders in the watershed.
So Ron, the agencies are poised to make the whole lift on that. Between all the interested parties, we're putting together like a very broad suite of monitoring, talking piezometers, shallow groundwater wells, high-res LiDAR, and handheld LiDAR. We're trying to throw the book at it because all the agencies have, what are we gonna get out of it? We're all doing it fast, but really what would be nice is that like low-hanging fruit project where it's like, this is the ideal situation to quantify. Because you're right, in the wrong place, it might be really hard to pin numbers to that stuff, how much water's moving through, what type of, base parent rock material. We have lost zones, we got stuff. So we need the right project to pin it to. But the forest is kicking in physical equipment, quite a bit of high dollar stuff. We're having conversations like, if this is the right one, is the USGS willing to turn on the gauges? Having all these conversations. We've bought a lot of equipment. All the agencies, nobody's gonna let this data slip through the cracks because everybody's waiting for the right one to like assign the numbers to. We haven't even got extensive temp logger networks monitoring right now, hundreds of loggers out, and so. But you're right, it's like, it doesn't matter which one and how you quantify it, but, and there's, the benefits, hydrology, your fire mitigation break, the, standing forage for wildlife and or grazing. I mean, the bat people are calling, the dipper people are calling, everybody wants numbers, so it's not gonna get willy-nilly, documented impacts. It needs pre-implementation, post-implementation, baseline data.
So that's ongoing with some of the stuff that's been started.
Jay? Jay, it's something
I'm sorry.
to say.
No, I was just making sure you were done before I pitched it to Jay.
Just-
So, like,
Jay Gilbertson, I'm with the East Dakota Water Development District, other side of the state, but also past chair and member of the State Non-Point Source Task Force. I note in your list of collaborators and partners that the South Dakota DANR Watershed Protection Program, who kind of do this stuff on a day-to-day basis, haven't been mentioned. And, in terms of the sorts of metrics and monitoring things, the department maintains a network of water quality monitoring stations across the Black Hills, looking at, again, water quality, water quantity issues that support USGS. Fair amount of language in the proposal talking about, how critical the surface water resources are from a drinking water standpoint, and yet they're not there. And not for nothing in terms of support, through the EPA Section 319 funds that come through the state and the task force and the department. While the lion's share of that right now is spent on implementing best management practices, the likes of which you've identified some and would like to do more, They do also have resources available for the assessment. As you noted, you can't go out and, you don't want to start fixing things without knowing that what you're fixing is going to make a difference. But also to the point that's been raised by Ron and others, that you kind of need to know what's happening. Yeah, I know that replacing a beaver dam is a good thing, but, you know, if it costs me $100,000, what's my benefit? So I guess, long way of going around, I agree with everybody else. To me, it sounds like a very good idea, but as you know, you're just getting started, and I think you really need to talk to the folks over at the Watershed Protection Program, if for no other reason. They've got access to actual money. And you're gonna go talk to them, you're gonna wanna go talk to them once you get your plan in place. I guarantee that. They will be on your list of people to go after. And so they need to be people you're talking to now.
So I will say, I agree with you, it's hard to, you know, base decisions off stuff you don't know. And again, this is just relative to the newness. A lot of these things, BDAs and stuff, have been around before, but like, you know, BDA is one tool in the process-based restoration toolkit. Yeah, putting this whole discipline under the name of low-tech restoration, it's so new, no one has quantified a lot of this stuff. But there are, so if you go to the Southwest, where, you know, they're farther along in drought conditions, the buy-in is coming from people who have no idea if there's quantifiable impacts. So municipalities who are worried about their groundwater are throwing money at projects like this. And a lot of it happens so fast, you know, there were changing winds on permitting, and so stuff started going in so fast. Folks like me who are desperate for numbers all the time, like, there was no time for pre-implementation data or anything. It was like, they started rolling. But, yeah, there's a lot of the money is coming from places, you know, other states that are doing it. It's been going on for quite a bit longer in, like, Utah, Idaho, southern Colorado, New Mexico, but, yeah, everyone's waiting for those exact results. But I mean, I've been a part of projects where a municipality says, like, we got eyes, we can see that's doing good. I don't know exactly how much water you're putting back in our aquifer, but here's 250 grand to like get you started. The frustrating part is, it would have been nice if there's some pre-implementation data and we could assign gallons going into the aquifer, right? But yeah, it's just, I don't know that it exists right now until someone does pin the numbers to it. Is kind of where we're at.
Yes.
Clarify for, is this a $75,000 project or a $110,000 project?
It's a $75,000 project.
So the money from Black Hills Fly Fishers and Community Foundation, where is that going?
That is money that is being dedicated to the broader effort in this landscape to support the field crews that are working, to support outreach and education, and to keep the train moving forward.
So that is money that is already being spent?
Yes.
So it's really not part of this at all?
It's not part of match for the direct assessment, but it's part of match for the collaboration as a whole.
That doesn't mean anything to me. What I'm getting is that we're the only ones that are being asked for money for this assessment, right?
Right now, yes.
And the Forest Service is doing nothing about this, even though it should logically be their responsibility.
The Forest Service is providing staff time as in-kind
The
contribution.
basic in-kind contribution. That's always a very nice term.
Yeah,
No money.
no money at this time from the Forest Service.
Game and Fish's plan to put 8,000 more elk in the northern hills is actually detrimental to improving this water situation, isn't it?
Yes,
So they're working against themselves.
a little bit. They're terrestrial and aquatic.
Likewise with Forest Service livestock leases, same problem.
Well, our livestock permittees have been the most bought in and have been very interested in seeing more of this on their permits and their lands.
Well, I think you've got a good concept of a proposal here, but I am unwilling to completely fund this ourselves. I'm willing to put significant money into it, but I'm not willing to vote to completely fund it, just on our task. I'd want to know more of the breakdown, as Ron has said, of what this 65,000 entails. Do you already have a private contractor identified?
We have a private contractor, Anna Branch, who's named in that, who we have been working with on and off since 2019, and who spent a week out here last year with us under a separate contract. But for this particular contract, it will go through an open bid process.
Okay.
So although they're the one we're most familiar with, we'll of course use a bid process for that.
And how does the 9,750 relate to the 6,500?
So that's for support of the contract management, for continued coordination of the stakeholders, and for the development of the actual restoration plan after we have the assessment. And we are
So we can take 9,750 out of that, because that doesn't really relate to putting the assessment together.
Yeah, if that's what you guys are comfortable with, absolutely.
I mean, the assessment, the work is in the 65,000.
Yes, that's correct. And that 65,000 is the contract in its entirety.
Well, I would urge you to, well, I'll shut up for now.
Director Driscoll?
I'd like to see West Dakota be a partner in this. I'll try to give you a couple of specifics. You know, it's all been alluded to before. If you look at number 4, the expected outcomes will be a watershed GIS assessment and development of long-term restoration action plan. Well, that's pretty broad. You get down to number 6, milestones and deliverables. There's kind of some little bit more specifics there, but I think most of us would really want to see something much more specific than the GIS assessment. And then beyond that, the funding end of it, speaking for myself, one vote. Right now, West Dakota is would be the sole funder. If there were an entity, it would be comforting to me. Forest Service, Game and Fish is putting in a lot of in-kind and whatnot, but if there would be some sort of a land management agency that would share, say, 1/2 of the cost, for my vote, that would, clearly, get me over that hurdle.
Yeah.
Something less, 60/40, whatever, but,
Yeah.
some substantial cost share there would help a lot.
Do you have a question, Director Mullally?
Maybe some clarification on page 14 of the packet. Looks like there's an incomplete sentence there at the top. The $9,750, $35 per hour, expected time, 15 hours per. What does that mean?
So if we have the contracts, that will require a lot of coordination and back and forth with that contractor. So that's what we estimate is the time commitment that will take, and that's where that roughly $9,000 came from.
Okay.
But like I said, we can take that out of the budget.
Yeah, it's mainly just confusing to
Yeah.
have things not adding up. I guess when I look at these things, I look at our overall mission statement. We don't really care about mule deer and bats and fire, we're just water. So those are nice things that might benefit from this. So I think this probably fits our overall mission statement, except, like I said, we have to clarify the private land ownership aspect of it. But then we have 9 directors, and each director has an area. We're not directors at large, so, technically we represent. And I've gotten feedback on this, and when I try to explain it, and when the word beaver appears 25 times in the proposal, people in Rapid Valley are not interested in beaver dams. And so I have to consider that. You know, there's some other issues out there. We're having problems with water due to an irrigation ditch shut down, so that's not necessarily a showstopper, but that influences me along with all the other things that we've seen. At this point, I'd be a no vote on it. I guess that's all I had for right now.
Ron had something that if you still have a comment, Scott, then I'll.
Well, I think from the directors and from our guests that we've heard, it sounds like a really interesting project, but we're all a little bit flummoxed right now in terms of the actual scope of work. Who's really paying for the assessment and who's, you know, contributing towards the assessment versus the after effects of the assessment and then the follow-on. So, I don't think we want to vote on, I mean, my personal view is we don't want to vote on this today. I think we need some more information, and I'd like to encourage you to work with Larry, or others of us, to look at that guideline that we have in our website for how to get a proposal put together. And then with some of the comments we've made today, and maybe come back with a little more clarity on what we're really about. And maybe you'll even be able to, like Director Driscoll said, drum up some actual cash that would be contributed towards the assessment versus asking us to pay for the entire assessment and the administration of it.
Mr. Chairman, just move this along. I'd move that we defer further consideration of this proposal till our August meeting.
We do have a meeting in July. Would you like it in July or in August?
Depends on how long it's gonna take them to put it together. I thought August might give them a little better time.
I don't know that we'd need to set a time if we just defer action until they're ready to bring something to us.
But I'd like to keep it on the agenda as a way of keeping it moving.
There is a motion,
I'll second that.
seconded by Roy. Discussion
I
on
was
the
gonna say
motion.
we could just not do anything. They can always bring it back, but the motion to defer is okay, but it's not needed.
Okay. Any other discussion on the current motion? And you wanted August in the different.
I'll keep with August. Somebody wants to do a substitute for July, I would consider that a friendly amendment, but I'll keep it at August at this point.
Does July work for you?
Yeah, I think we can do July.
Well, I would ask to amend that for July.
Okay, I'll take that as a friendly amendment. Roy, is that agreeable?
Yeah.
We'll do July.
Second reading. I don't have a second.
Hard to believe that we're talking about July.
He was trying to figure
Feels
out
like
if this
July
was a
today.
two-vote
Yeah.
Yeah.
thing, and so yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, okay. Motion on the floor is by McGregor, seconded by Boucher, to defer action until July meeting for more clarification brought forward from the Black Hills Watershed Collaborative. Discussion on the motion.
I'll probably vote no, not because I'm against the idea, but I don't think we need the motion. So just going on record here.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor of the motion state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
One opposed, Director Millar.
Like I say, I think Larry or any of us here would be willing to
Okay.
work with you if you have questions about how to put something together here.
Perfect. Thank you.
How many beavers pile up behind the beaver dam?
Depends.
So thank you
Yes,
guys.
thank you for your time.
And, please keep in touch,
Okay.
and we can get something worked out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, item number 8, authorized purchase of name tags for directors and administration, and that is Director Mullally. The purchase of name tags.
Yeah, it's kind of a trivial thing, but at a lot of meetings and like the hydrology conference, Earth Day type stuff, I thought it'd be nice if we had some official name tags. So I thought, if somebody doesn't want one, they don't have to get one, but we could just get them individually and then have a voucher we could submit to Mr. Stetler and get reimbursed.
Any other thoughts, comments? Is there a motion for the authorization of the purchase?
I would just, recommend that we make sure they're uniform, that whatever, it's not, we
Sorry?
decide. I would recommend that we make sure that all our name tags are uniform and
Okay.
designed.
That would make sense, yeah. And I could try to come up with a design if that makes sense.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
here's your design, Deb. It's all set.
Okay,
Excellent.
give me that. So we're all gonna be Jay Gilbertson?
Well,
Grab a
you
picture.
might
Take a
wanna change
picture of it
your
for the
word.
camera.
We'd be famous then.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we've created these and have the name tags for various board members over the years. And it's handy. If you're there representing the district, it's good, so it allows people to know who you are and what's going on. If they're made by a professional, that translates into a little more respect. Hi, I'm
Is there a motion to approve for our admin to look into this and to get name tags for the board?
I'd make a motion to do that.
Motion by Klein, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by McGregor. Discussion on the motion?
I can just take a picture of Jay's tag and take it to the, where's it, Vanway, where we get these
Yeah.
things made and just have them make them.
Yeah.
Unless I hear from somebody that they don't want one.
I just got a picture, so I can text it
Okay.
to you if you want, or email it to you.
Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor state by stating aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay. Item 9, rescind Green Valley Sanitation District funding in 2020 for the $125,000 for their project, and that is Director McGregor.
We've been carrying this grant on the books for a long time since we issued it, oh golly, back in 2021. I think the Green Valley sanitation effort at this point is all but collapsed, so I think it's time we just close this down. The understanding they can always come back to us later on if they get their, lack of a better description, shit together, and come up with a new sanitation proposal. We could certainly refund them, but I don't see any reason to keep carrying this, as an outstanding project, because it doesn't look like we're ever gonna be called upon to actually spend that money. So I would move, Mr. Chairman, that we rescind the funding of $125,000 for the Green Valley Sanitary District.
May I speak?
Sure, if you can address.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Frank Henderson. I am the current president of the Green Valley Sanitation District. It's a job I voluntold for, I guess if you want to say. Just real fast background, okay? I'm a professional engineer. I grew up in Hill City. Maybe too much of a sidelight backstory, but been coming back and forth for forever. It just coincidentally, after 47 years, I came back, and my mom's nurse was a girl I dated as a teenager, and I ended up getting married. We married and moved here to the Valley. In that, we're part of the Green Valley Sanitation District, and for a couple years now, I've been going to their meetings, and I guess I would echo the statement or the inference I just heard that get the shit together. And that, well, I understand what you're saying 100%, and that's what we're doing. at this point, and here's my final statement request here, okay, is to not rescind this money yet. It sounds like, and I believe you've been contacting me,
Yeah.
called me several times to tell me that there was questions and asked for information. Near as I can understand, there has been any conversation, communication, or coordination with you all regarding this grant money, and I apologize for that. I just came on as president of the board in February. I've watched them go through 2 board turnovers, the last one of which was really ugly, where the 3 board members literally dumped all the paperwork out on the table and walked out the door. I've been sorting through Tupperwares. The documents have just been thrown into Tupperwares, into cabinets, and we're sorting through that to find out. I just recently found the actual contract that we have with the state for the loan. And I just recently became aware of the fact that we are in fact connected to y'all for this $125,000 grant. Let me real quick just give you an update on the project. If you have you heard anything at all for years? Doesn't sound like it, right? Okay.
Just from what I relayed at our meetings after talking to you, I updated the board a little bit.
Okay.
Because the gravity system versus pressurized.
Correct.
Yeah.
The original project, or the original study, preliminary engineering study, was for a gravity system, and it had a price tag on it. I'm just gonna use round numbers, around 10 million. It's about what they estimated. They sent the engineering company back to the drawing boards. Like I mentioned, I'm a professional engineer. I've been doing sewer system designs for almost 50 years now. They sent the engineering company back and they came up with a pressurized system idea that they have advanced plan-wise to around 80%, something like that. Their plans are somewhere around 80%. Their most recent estimate is just north of 18 million instead of the 10 million that was in the original engineering study. My overall opinion is I'm not sure it's a cost-effective program. I'll just say that. That's my overall engineering opinion. However, I don't want to have us as a board make a decision just based upon what my personal opinion might be or 1 or 2 other people's personal opinion might be. We have our board meeting tomorrow night in this room tomorrow night, open meeting. We are in the process of putting together a survey, online survey, and we're also going to send out mailers to all of our residents to explain to them, because there's been a lot of misunderstanding and communication about the need for the project, the cost of the project, the schedule for the project, what we're committed to. We're already $850,000, I would call it, in debt to the state on the grant, or on the loan. We're already $850,000 into that for the engineering fees. And honestly, at $850,000, previous board, they don't even have a set of plans yet. They don't have 850 grand. They don't have a set of plans. So for that reason, we stopped the engineering company until we can find out what the status of our loan is, what the status of our grants are, until we are able to get a hold of our constituents and find out for them, do they want this system? Is it something we want to move forward? Are they willing to pay the assessments? What'll be the monthly assessments? We need to go out and get a survey, but we need to get an accurate representation of all of our constituents, of all of our members. There's 289 properties, to go in and get a survey from them of whether or not we want to proceed or don't proceed, okay? So my overall, like I said, my overall plea here is a request, is to not cancel this at this time. I know you've been carrying on the books. I'm sure it's frustrating. I apologize for that. I wish I could change that, but I cannot. But to ask that you not rescind this at this time until we have a chance to contact our constituents and find out how we're going to proceed and if we're going to proceed. I'm not sure how that will play out yet. I really don't know that answer. I will commit to you all to come to your next meetings in July. I'll commit to come back to you each month and give you an update. I just live right down the road here. I'll come back and give you a monthly update to keep you aware of it If you choose to rescind it at a later date, obviously you all have that authority and decision-making. That's up to you to make that decision if that's what you wish to do. I just really would ask that you not do that at this time until I have a chance to gather more information, bring you back some facts, give you a better status update, find out from our constituents what they want to do. That's just my overall, I'll answer questions. I don't know what more to say.
How much longer do you think that's gonna take
For what's that, sir? For
to
which
do
part?
everything you wanna get done here?
Within the next month or two.
Okay.
I'll say, okay, your next meeting's July, right? I'll come back to, I'll have, by July. That'd be my commitment to you, it's
Okay.
July.
I'll withdraw the motion, Mr. Chairman.
One thing I will say is I did reach out to Black Hills Council of Local Governments.
Jennifer?
Yep.
Yes.
So make sure you contact her because I asked if she had heard from you guys lately and she said that she hadn't, and that was like last week. I'm like, hey, what have you heard on this? Like, this the funding, because when they were trying to move the funding over to the front end for some of the other study work and kind of move the pile of money, she had contacted me because I had just become chair and we had some slight conversation. So I would say, like, really try to get her in the loop sooner than later. Might be helpful for you. Yeah.
So I have been in contact with her. I have not been in contact with her for the last few weeks. But part of it was I took an extended vacation and was, I hope this doesn't, I took an extended vacation in Hawaii, so I was over there for a while. Okay? I mean, might as well tell you the truth where I was, right? You want to see the really cool fish I caught? So I took an extended vacation, was over there. We got back at the end of March, been scrambling. I actually was still working Arizona, so I go back and forth to Arizona every couple of weeks and work down there. But I do know Jennifer, I do know we need to contact her. She was at not our last meeting, but the one before. So we've made base with her within the last 2 months.
Okay.
I also mentioned that we had 2 board members that were on the board, and when our bookkeeper found out who the 2 board members were, she quit. So our bookkeeper that's got all of our tax records has quit and is not responding to phone calls or emails. So it has been one hell of a challenge to try and wrestle hold of this monster. And it's a big monster. I mean, like I say, it's $10 million. And what I don't want to do is I don't want us to make decisions that are not well informed. And as a result of those uninformed decisions, put a bunch of people in debt. And that's what my final biggest concern is. One of the reasons I bring up this survey is in our conversations with Jennifer, she has said, you need to go out and have polling of your constituents to find out whether or not there's public support for this. If there isn't public support for this, it gives you backup if you want to walk away from the sewer system. If there's public support for the sewer system, then you have an obligation to go ahead and move forward, to try and finish the design and get a bid and find out if it's something that you can afford. The original estimates, they were going to be $110 a month per property, and now they're looking at a couple $100 a month per property. We don't even have that final number yet either. So, like I say, I stopped the engineering company as president. I told them to stop work until we got our grips on all the contracts and all the details of what we're committed to. I know we have a $125,000 grant with you. There's another $125,000 grant. There's the loan from the state. So I'm trying to get a hold of this. So I'll come back in July and give you an update.
So the loan from the state, is that gonna be paid off with the assessment then? Is that how that would work?
That is how that would work.
Okay.
That is correct.
Is there a way to just get out of this project even doing anything?
Yes.
Is this a problem in search of a solution or a solution in search of a problem? I guess it's never been clear to me why this started, other than septic inspections.
So okay, so I told you all I'd be communicative and informative, so I'll do that, okay? My understanding is it started with statements that there were people hauling buckets of feces
Yeah.
out of their house and dumping it in the creek.
And I heard that too from.
That's never been substantiated.
Loretta told me that,
Well, okay.
so.
I'll withhold my opinion, okay? that people were dumping buckets of feces out in the creek. That has never been substantiated. There's no documents to that point, There's no pictures. There's none of that I can find anywhere that substantiates that, number one. Number two is that, well, actually, it's my wife who went to, my wife's name's Pam Kammerer. My name's Frank Henderson. Pam Kammerer went to the city and we acquired, cameras.
She's my cousin.
Oh, I tell you, she seems like everything I hear from. Everybody's a cousin. So.
Conflict.
She went down to and got copies of all of the most recent septic tank inspections. Of the 200 and some septic tank inspections, there were 8 of them that were identified as needing repairs. There were 2 that were abandoned and therefore not in operation. So there's like 7 of them that required repairs. I'm not sure, I just did the number. I'd have to have the paper with me, that required repairs, and those repairs that were done. So to the best of our research, there's no documentation that says there is a bunch of failing septic tanks out there that are polluting the groundwater. There haven't been any studies that they're polluting the groundwater. There is a study that was done by a school of mines professor, oh my gosh, in 2010, something, or not 2010. So it goes back to, about 2010, that did some analysis of upstream water quality, but downstream water quality was way far down, like the other side of the airport. So there's nothing been really done to zero in on this particular area, that section of land, that says that area is failing. There is high groundwater. If you go on the low side of the creek, there's high groundwater. People are building mound systems out there. That's what they have to put in now, is mound systems for their septic tanks down there. As far as I know, they're all working. There's nothing I've heard or seen that these septic systems are failing out there. I don't know of anything that documents or substantiates that it's a problem. Part of the reason of why I'm stepping in, which like I have all the time in the world, I'm stepping in to say, I got some professional engineering experience. This is what I've done in my career. This is what my job is. I don't see something that justifies putting in a $20 million sewer system right now. I just don't see it. The risk that we have, and I'm gonna say we in our district, the risk that we have is the state, if the project doesn't go forward, the state says, you still owe us loan money. You still owe us $850,000 or whatever that number is. You'll need to pay it back, in which case we would have to file assessments so that each property is reimbursing the $850,000 that we would owe for the state towards the loan. It's one of those low interest, Clean Water Act loans is what it is. That's what it is. I'm familiar with those. So it's a low interest loan. Essentially, I don't know if they give us the same 30 years to pay it back that they would if we finish the project. I don't know if they would do that. That's a conversation we have to have. Back to your point, we'd have to go talk to Jennifer about that more. That's more conversations with her. But the answer to your question is, I'm not sure there's a problem, so I'm not sure there needs to be a solution. So whether there's a problem that needs a solution, or there's a solution that's trying to develop a problem, I'm not sure of either one of those answers right now. I don't know.
Well,
I have my opinion.
Thanks we finally got somebody here that's telling us something, so,
Yeah.
thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll be back in July, right?
Okay, see you-
Second- what is-
you
what
bet.
is this, the
See you
second-
next meeting.
Second Tuesday?
Second
Okay.
Tuesday.
All right.
3 o'clock.
Please ask me any questions that you have.
Is your name on the signage?
I did not find
Right
that.
right there.
Oh,
If you do that, you'll be on the email notice prior to the meeting with agenda.
And I will say that my volunteering for this board has helped me realize how much time you all put into this, so thank you all.
So then the motion was rescinded, so there's no action, and we'll see.
So on to item 10.
Okay, on to item 10, information, all item, an update from the WDRB RWS, and we had Christine Conza is there, but I think someone else is here instead of her, so I don't want to call you.
Yeah, I'm Jim Jones. Good afternoon. Thanks for asking me to come and visit today. And happy to represent Western Dakota Regional Water and that project. And I got a brief slideshow, and then we'll take questions. Sounds good. First off, I just want to thank you guys for all your support for the regional project. Western Dakota, initially started right here. We get right down to it. You funded a mine study that looked at water availability in Western Pennington County. And after that, you've supported us every year. You supported work with Banner Engineering and Cheryl Chapman, who was our first executive director. And I just want to thank you for that, and we'll get started. Oh, I guess I should tell you too. I'm part of the technical team. I work with AE2S and Jim Jones. So thanks again. This is our current board of directors. We'll have an election this fall. I expect maybe one or two positions might change, but this is our current board. It's made up of membership. How we are set up, there's a number of different levels of membership. And in order to hold office, we'll be voting, you would be a class 1 member. So these are some of our larger systems, and 2 smaller systems make up our board. And then here's a picture of Kristen, our executive director. Advance. Here's our footprint, and we currently have 50 members, made up of a lot of the larger, not all, but most of the larger municipal water systems, and a handful of small systems. We have membership that's also associate level, and some supporting folks are members that are individual. It's a map of Western South Dakota's water systems. Here we have over 350 unique individual water systems. Most of those are in the Black Hills. There's a lot of those that we would like to have as membership, but many of these systems, kind of like Roy's system, they might be a small HOA, maybe 25 to 50 connections. And of those, there's over 250 of those type of systems in the Black Hills. And collectively, they make up over 50,000 in population, so it would be South Dakota's 3rd largest city. The door's open for all those to be members into Western Dakota, but we just have a handful of those currently. This is a new graphic. You might have seen this one in the past where we talk about, is there enough water in the Missouri River to bring out to the Black Hills? And we used to talk about million gallons per day. Now we look at million acre feet annual numbers. And if we look at the lowest flow ever recorded in Bismarck, North Dakota, that was 78 million acre feet. And then leaving South Dakota down in Sioux City, lowest flow ever recorded 115 million acre feet. So we see there's a net increase during the lowest flow ever recorded of 37 million acre feet. And we are looking at using 0.07 million acre feet at our current max build-out design. All right, a new update here too. We've got 2 bills out in DC. We have Senator Thune and Mike Rounds have introduced legislation to let the Western Dakota Regional Water Project get authorization, so we can get a complete feasibility study completed from the BOR, and that is in committee currently. And with Thune and Rounds legislation, they have included $10 million appropriation to help fund that feasibility from BOR. And Dusty Johnson, Rep. Johnson has also put in a bill. Kristen Conzit was out in DC in April testifying for that bill, and that one is now in markup. So we're making some headway out in DC. We look at feasibility study stages, and AE2S is the lead engineer for the project. We've partnered with KLJ and Black and Beach. We've done a number of things up to this date. We're kind of in the 5, 6, and 7 portion of this timeline. So we have some parts of the conceptual design completed, and we'll look at those slides coming up. The financial plan and analysis we're starting right now. And then we're looking for authorization, BOR authorization, which was number 7. As part of the feasibility study, that included, or we'd like to call kind of the pre-feasibility study, the work that we're doing before BOR is authorized to work on this project. We've completed canvassing. We've completed looking at our water source. We'll get to this slide, but water source, we're looking at Lake Oahe, north of Pier. We've looked at different intakes into the lake or from the river. We've selected the most economical intake there at the lake. We'll have treatment coming. We'll look at pipe alignments. We'll have treatment at the lake. We'll have booster stations, reservoirs, and pipe alignment coming out from the lake to the Black Hills. And then we've completed environmental analysis. So, and that was KLJ's role in the project. As part of the feasibility study, and to make sure that, you know, if we were to find that it's not feasible, this idea, we're looking at other alternatives too. So some of those are, we're reviewing our local groundwater sources, we're looking at aquifer storage and recovery, we're looking at water rights, and could we lease or buy out existing irrigation water rights to provide more water to the Black Hills. The construction's a new dam, I think, is a long shot, but it's also on our list of things to review. Wastewater reclamation and conservation measures we're working on. We put a conservation plan in place for Fort Pier. We've got 1 year of data on that. We're looking to perpetuate that for the next few years also. And then power provider needs. All right, so here's the transmission line. I mentioned we're pulling from the lake. You can see we'll have an intake here. We'll have treatment near Highway 14, south of the lake. From there, the main transmission line follows the highway a little bit, also crosses country. It'll be right north of Wasta when it crosses the Cheyenne. And then we'll bring it up in north of the Air Force Base and connect to a main reservoir up there. Right now, we're looking at, I want to say worst case scenario, but I'll say max build out for our idea. We'll have a 72-inch transmission pipe coming out from the lake. Once it reaches the metro area, the Rapid City, Box Elder area, it'll split, and we'll have a transmission or distribution line going north and south. This also, this pipe size makes some assumptions of how much water during an extreme drought our membership will require. And once we start looking at that affordability of that size, we might change and bring that down to be determined maybe by the end of the year. But at this point, we're designing for a 72-inch transmission pipe. And then we'll have smaller pipes going north and south to meet our membership. And here's the distribution system. We have members on the east side of our area, that is Tripp County and the city of Winter. We have Martin, and then we have folks all over the Black Hills, north and south. We go as far south as Edgemont. We picked up Southern Black Hills, Hot Springs, Fall River Water Users District, Custer, Hill City, besides Rapid City, Box Elder, Rapid Valley, Blackhawk, Sturgis. We're up in Butte Mead, Rural Water, Belfouche, Spearfish, Newell, all members. We got a couple up in the high hills we've got Terry Trojan and Powderhouse Pass. So we're looking at distribution lines to all of our members. And I should say too, we should have the distribution system conceptual engineering done probably within about a month. Yep, mid to late June, that should be wrapped up. For the treatment alternatives, like I said, we're gonna have a water treatment plant, conceptual design at the lake. We're looking at 3 different alternatives. And when we look at the arrow here, as treatment complexity increases, the cost of that treatment goes up. This will be a board decision and membership decision, but some folks that treat water use conventional treatment on the lake, minimal treatment on the lake. They meet primary standards, and that's it. And then we could look at meeting primary standards, secondary standards for total dissolved solids and hardness, so that this water that we pull from the Missouri blends well with our customers' water. And then we can look at advanced treatment that would say we'd take all of our membership's water and look at the average quality and make sure that what is produced blends well with all of our members. So there's some challenges with these options, primarily because surface water can be a challenge. The Missouri River is a fantastic water source. It's not as good as Pactola. So the folks that are in surface water treatment, Rapid City, Rapid Valley, they have a very good quality water to start with coming out of Rapid Creek, and their finished water quality is also exceptional. So although the Missouri River is fantastic and most people would be delighted to have it, Pactola is way better. Yeah, especially when we look at TOC and total organic carbon and how those carbons combine with chlorine. Rapid City, Rapid Valley have no issues with that. Some of the folks pulling water out of the Missouri have issues when those organics combine with chlorine. So one challenge we're working on. So besides your funding for the project, we also got a considerable grant from the state. We have ARPA funds. Those funds have to be spent by the end of the year. We'll have those wrapped up by December, early December. And then we'll have a deficit of funding. And there won't be as much work to do after the end of the year until we have authorization. Now, authorization could happen yet this year, and we're all hopeful it will. But if there is a delay and we don't have BOR authorization, then we'll have some funding that we'll need to make up. Yes. Go ahead. We're starting the financial analysis. Like I said, now we don't have all of our numbers in, so our financial team can't go to members to say this is the total project cost, this is what each member's burden will be. But we'll get there before the end of the year. The distribution system numbers we'll have up by mid-June. The treatment system numbers will be late summer, early fall. So those meetings with members will be late fall, early winter, but before the end of the year is our plan. We just started a new education campaign. We're taking our message out to the masses, and our tagline's just add water. So we have some videos, and I think maybe the next slide might, and if you hover over this, maybe there's no speakers there, and hit play.
Limited water, growing demand, one solution, Missouri River Water, Western Dakota Regional Water System. Just add water.
I lose
Okay, no problem.
audio, and I don't know if it will plug back in.
It'll be on our website, and I encourage all of you to look at it and view. We have 3 different videos. This one's just a really short blip about the project, but she has some that she's narrating that are 2-3 minutes long. They're very educational. They're geared for folks that know very little about the project and about water needs in western South Dakota. So we're really proud of this campaign.
Limited water, growing demand, one solution. Missouri River Water, Western Dakota Regional Water System. Just add water.
Oh, that was it. That'll be easy then. They said 10 minutes, so I'm right on time. But happy to take questions. I'll do the best I can to answer.
Gregor, then.
Have you made any kind of an assessment on what your right-of-way acquisition cost is gonna be?
Not yet.
Will you be entitled to use eminent domain?
We would avoid that at all costs. Yeah.
So you could, but you don't expect.
We don't plan to utilize it. Yeah.
Do you know what the electricity cost per year will be?
Oh, that's a really good question. We don't have that yet, but we're looking at a number of scenarios. For instance, the water treatment plant's gonna have a large electrical load. We're looking at building that out in trains or phases. And we could look at year one, maybe that is 25 million gallons per day. And then we'd have 3 additional trains to get up to that 100 NGD. And then each booster station coming out, we have electrical costs for the booster stations, assuming 95 million gallons per day flows. And 5 booster stations just to get out to the metro area, so.
Okay, one more question. It seems like when we started this, the idea was to provide water, not necessarily build a pipeline. Is that still the goal? Or are you pushing for the pipeline?
Also a really good question. When
'Cause
the
I mean,
conversations first started, we looked at, well, what is the need? And if we have an exceptional drought, and USGS has done some research over the last 750 years and said a number of extreme droughts have happened, about 10 during that time period, and they've lasted 15 to 20 years. And when they estimated the amount of precipitation that was falling in the Black Hills during extreme droughts over that long length of time, annual precip for the entire Black Hills was less than 1 volume of Pactola. So as we talked about what could be the needs of membership during an extreme drought, the volume of water got pretty high, right? We're talking about 95 million gallons per day. The only water rights that are available, or water rights that Rapid City have, that you had, that Rapid Valley have, is the Missouri River. The only way to get the water from the Missouri River to the Black Hills is through a pipeline. So we are looking at some other alternatives, but we don't have access to the water. We have ideas, right? We could talk about irrigation rights from Orman, for instance, and say, well, what if we bought up a ton of irrigation rights up there? Could we use that water, especially short term, if this project's 20, 30 years from providing water to the metro area, even longer to supply water to Edgemont or Belle-Fourche? Could we do some steps in between? And maybe if we had some of those water rights, if we had availability of water in other areas, we could consider that. But the only real ironclad solution today is, because you've had water rights, and Rapid City has held water rights since the 1970s, is the Missouri River. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions from directors? Yes, Mark?
Have you looked into all with, is it possible to somehow partner with the Midwood Colony, either on your rights?
Yeah,
for
that's a really good question too. Thanks for asking that. When the project first started, we had 2 board members that were part of the Mini-Wachoni system, and some changes happened in the middle of the project where they have excused themselves from the project. They're no longer board members, they're no longer active, but we would certainly welcome them back. We would love to include them in the project, Cheyenne River also. Yeah, to this date, we can only design for our membership. And our membership does not include Mini Wachoni today, but I sure hope it will in the future. And because they have infrastructure in place, we would certainly not want to duplicate any resources. And I think they have some needs that they could benefit from being a part of the project too. So I would like us all to work together. Yeah.
Not seeing any other questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you again. I
Thank you.
appreciate all your support. And Western Dakota definitely appreciates all your support.
You guys still housed down at the Elevate building?
No, we're down at the Creamery now,
In the creamery?
across from Armadillos.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, there's a coffee shop in there and Armadillos across the street. So, yeah.
You
All
look
right.
like you're controlling yourself, though.
Well,
Tough place to be.
full disclosure, I'm at the AEDS offices. I'm right across from the post office.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm part of the technical team. Kristen's executive director, and then she has some admin support, one person, and that's it. That's technically employed as Western Dakota. I'm just part of the technical team helping out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Talking to you.
item 11, information, Deerfield Pactola Reservoir Modeling Stakeholder Meeting on April 17th, 2026. So after the hydrology conference, Bar Engineering, who is doing our modeling for our Deerfield Pactola project, held a stakeholder meeting at the Doubletree Hilton on the 17th. 30 different groups were invited, about 20 showed up. You do see the attendee list on the item. There was a discussion and an overview of what the project happened with the project, what they found out, kind of a little bit of a rehash which was given during the hydrology conference. And then input was taken by the attendees of what they thought of the project, where they thought the needs were. As you can see on page 15 and half of 16, you can see the questions and the comments that were raised for that meeting. One thing that was highlighted is that by the city of Rapid City that they were concerned about how reservoir levels and how they should fall or not fall for that, and a little bit about Rapid Creek and fisheries protection. There was also discussion about the process and how they BAR worked with BOR and found some issues with some of the technical documentation that had to be fixed and updated so that it met the actual procedure of how the dams were being run. But overall, it was a good meeting to at least touch base to the larger set of stakeholders about what this project was. I know Director Driscoll, Director Cole, and Director Young were also there. If you guys have any comments about the meeting, you're more than welcome to make those statements.
I thought it was a pretty valuable meeting in terms of bringing some people to the table that hadn't been there previously. Most of the duration of the project, up until, basically that meeting in April, the conversation had been between Rapid City, the Bureau of Reclamation, West Dakota, BAR and their subcontractor, and then the reclamation folks out of the Denver office that were administering the project. So it was a fairly small group of key players that had, real vested interests in how Pactola Deerfield were operated. And by default, I guess all of those groups tried to represent, various kinds of perspectives other than their own on what might or might not be considerations. So I think this was pretty good. Like some of the landowners said, well, this level is a big problem. There've been some flows in there to represent winter low flows, for example, for fisheries. Folks had some comments about those and whether they were even gonna be adequate, given the way that the channel is configured and the depth of water, et cetera, et cetera. There was a lady there that we've only dealt with via email and phone, I think, from the Bureau office. And she's actually our main contract person. So it was really interesting to hear from her sort of what our objectives might want to be as we go forward. And I think that relates to the next item a little bit too, but we talked quite a bit about what do we need to do to make this go forward, other than just being a study that somebody says, well, that's interesting. Being interesting in that many of the scenarios that VAR has modeled are better outcome-wise than what's currently being done in terms of optimizing water for the various users. And she said, well, your objective is to really get to a reservoir operations investigation. There's some kind of terminology. Reservoir operations evaluation, maybe Craig knows more about it, but it's the first step towards reoperationalizing a reservoir system that the Bureau would have to do, which would be a real in-depth evaluation and study that the Bureau would do. And so in order for that to happen, she said, you've got to really have what you've done as a precursor, up to the standards of the Bureau. And so that's what we've been trying to do, is get it up to the standards that the Bureau technical team in Denver has reviewed it, so that we can then try and move it forward, towards this reservoir operations investigation and then an operational, study, which might take, multiple years to complete. But that would be a step towards achieving, a new paradigm, I guess, in terms of how Deerfield Pactola are managed, that might have some of these benefits that have been identified as possibilities by the modeling that's done so far. So that's my short answer of the meeting, but so I saw sorry it was kind of long, but I thought it was a pretty good meeting.
Dan, I know you were there. Did you have any thoughts on how the meeting went?
Nothing really to add.
Okay. Overall, I thought it was a good meeting in seeing that a larger group of stakeholders could see what BAR had done to try to meet the requirements of what the BOR and the city had asked. I think overall it is one of those one small steps in a long journey for this to actually be a productive thing that we could see the change like Ron had stated. But it seemed like there was a desire, or at least a thought, that moving forward would be beneficial from the stakeholders. And one of the big comments that I took away is that more people thought that more people should have attended. But we sent out with what we had and got what we had. So I still think there is still movement in kind of the second step of stakeholder engagement, or engagement by people that use the Deerfield Pactola reservoirs. Any other questions, comments, concerns from the board before we move on? Okay, hearing none. So, request of funding for a change order for $27,000 by Bar Engineering. Now, because of the items that BOR needed to match what what would you describe it as?
Current operating conditions.
Current operating conditions with their model, there were requests from the city and from the BOR to change things, to run things, to update things. And under the current plan, BAR has informed us they are paid up as of today. So it's not that we owe them $27,000, but to continue the plan of the involvement of the stakeholder attendees and building more information on the desires of those attendees, it is going to cost an additional $27,000. That was more than what was initially budgeted. As I stated, currently we are even with them, but if they continue on with more stakeholder analysis and also with any other presentations, that it would cost the additional $27,000 from what was initially budgeted. So I put this out here as information to the board that there would be a request for an additional $27,000. Any other, you want to add more comments, Ron?
Basically, that wasn't a good Charlie horse. Basically, what BAR did was try and meet the requirements that the technical team in Denver said had to be met, which meant that over the course of quite a bit of time, BAR had been really polling and requesting and doing a lot of one-on-one meetings with both the city and the local bureau. Apparently, the information wasn't fully disclosed by the local folks on really how the reservoirs are operated. So when the technical team did their really in-depth review of the model, they said, well, this all looks pretty good, but these are some things that don't seem to really make sense with how the reservoirs are being operated based on what we see. So what's going on? BAR had to go back then again and go re-poll both the local bureau and the city for more information. That generated a whole nother model run basically in order to meet the requirements of the technical team, which again is part of that objective of getting to the point where there's a model that's available so that the Bureau can then take it into, that next phase of a reservoir operations investigation. So they did what they had to do to get the model up to snuff, so basically with more information that was required that came about after the BOR technical review. And so now, if we want to keep this ball rolling basically towards the final objective, which to get the Bureau to do an operational investigation, we probably need to do a little more stakeholder engagement, incorporate some of the comments that stakeholders made about various reservoir levels, etc. Go through some more work that was actually anticipated, but now that they spent this money, they need some more money to supplement, to complete that part of the study. And this request for money would be outside of the WaterSmart grant. It is the WaterSmart grant, according to the lady from Denver, isn't going to be something we can amend. This would just be money that we need to pay to get this, going to the next level to achieve our overall objective.
So why should we pay more to account for information withheld by BOR and the city in the initial rounds?
I guess there's no particular reason that we should feel like, it's a fair thing, but the fact is that they didn't provide enough information so that the model had to be redone. And I think in the big picture, that technical review by the people in Denver actually, even though it cost us more money, was very beneficial because it helped continue to vet out actually how those reservoirs are run and to demonstrate, during these model runs that there are a lot of alternatives that maximize the benefits. The big benefits that we kind of were after were, better winter flows for the ecosystem, less flood pulse for all of the properties that are downstream of Pactola all the way out into the valley, and then the potential for some additional municipal water storage because of the way they had managed those two systems. So, yeah, it's kind of stinks.
I see no reason why we should pay for somebody else's mistakes.
Well, if we want to keep this ball moving forward towards the goal line, then that's what we have to do.
That's called extortion.
Well, whatever you want to call it, it is what it is.
Well, part of this is requested by Rapid City, you said?
The Bureau in
City.
Rapid City failed to provide some of the information, apparently, that related directly to checking the model and how it matched up with current reservoir
So can we
operations.
ask Rapid City for more money? Since
Well,
they're-
our luck with asking Rapid City for damn near anything is zero. So I guess we could ask them, but I would say we just pay the bill and think it's part of the full objective of what we're trying to achieve. It's not a significant amount of money in the big picture. And we had the lead on this. If some of the directors remember that we had to go beg and borrow and almost steal to get Rapid City to even sign a letter that would support us, to get this going. So my guess is they're not gonna be real interested in giving us money.
And if we don't do this, what happens is
We're pretty much out of money, except that VAR would provide us with a final summary report. There would be no more assistance with stakeholder engagement in incorporating any of those elements into, a small future modeling run that would help us move that towards, the goal where the Bureau would then, take this and do an operational study.
Are we
I
at
would
this-
final out basically the project now, because they have enough money left to do a final, but they don't have enough money left to do all of the things that we had in their scope of work to engage stakeholders, because they spent the money to redo the model.
So are we gonna have this problem every time there's another stakeholder meeting?
I wouldn't anticipate that to be the case, but, it's hard to see what the crystal ball is. I know that when Thomas got some of this information that Craig was copied on as well, I think Miguel thinks there's very little more modeling to do. It's mostly trying to keep the stakeholders, and get their inputs so that we could kind of final it out and turn it back over to the Bureau so that they can try and operationalize it.
And what's this $11,650 that's in the,
That's our federal federal grant money that's left.
and is there some use for that that's unbilled at this point, or?
Well, we have some money left in the budget that will allow BAR to final out this project. And that encompasses both our share and the federal share. Because we're not out of money yet, but we will be out of money shortly if BAR just finals us out. So that's
Okay.
all part of the original grant.
What do they do to final it out?
Well, they would give us a final report, summary, kind of like what's in the contract, They'd
And
provide
that's gonna
webinars.
cost, our share of that will be this 11,000.
Well, that'd be the federal share, I think, and then our shares, or maybe not.
What's on the budget sheet, that 11,000 is what is in the bank. That's the West Dakota's match
Okay.
to the federal funds. There's also, I think the federal funds, I don't have the exact penny, but I believe it's 23,000 is left available that I can make requests for.
'Cause it's
So we got
basically-
23 and 11.
And that's the money that's gonna produce the final report?
That would produce our final report, webinar, wrap it all up if we said, you're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any guarantee that this will move things forward after we give them 27,000 with BOR? Or are they gonna come back and say you need this now and, kick us down the road even farther?
I guess that we could do whatever we could do to have a change order that would be executed with BAR, say, okay, here is the, the full scope of your work, here's what you're exactly gonna do, and then that's it. And then at that stage, whatever we have, we would then hope that would be adequate, that we could move that to the Bureau and say, okay, we've done everything basically that you told us we had to do, with the exception of some climate modeling or whatever. And we'd like to see it, taken to the next level so that these scenarios that look like they do a better job can be, checked out from the Bureau side. Because just like I don't know, not like every, but it's just like the deal that we saw here with the water pipeline. They're doing all this feasibility, but then the Bureau has to do their own feasibility. So I guess that's how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'd had the impression maybe the reclamation was gonna have somebody here today, but, maybe that was a false impression.
I guess I didn't know that.
We had talked about that. Did
talked about
they
it.
get contacted?
Did they not come, or did they back out of coming?
No, I know I had mentioned about sending something out, and I think I sent it to Miguel and not Reclamation, so that's on me. I apologize.
You know, I'm just a little uncomfortable. I kind of understand how this whole process works. This isn't necessarily all that unusual of a circumstance, but, you know, I'd feel a lot better about it. I guess what I'm wondering is, would it be possible that we defer action on this until our July meeting and see if we would be able to have a meeting with Reclamation, so, you know, we can hear directly from them some of these ins and outs, as opposed to, you know, passed down through wherever it's been passed through. You know, I suspect there's no real way around it if we want to take the next step, but I'd kind of like to hear it straight from the horse's mouth what all's, you know, involved here.
Yeah, the webinar that they had, that we all could have been on, I think, was the guy from the Denver Center. He was the one who really explained, and I can't explain it, what was wrong. And then they had to fix it. But I imagine we could. I don't know. We burn more, we, again, reclamation doesn't work for free. So then we're burning more of that dollar, but I guess then the change order might go up if we ask Bar to be a part of that, because right now it's sort of quantified. But I guess we can.
But we're not responsible for the change order, BOR is.
Oh, no, we are.
We're the
They can
lead.
take
No,
responsibility.
we aren't. How are we responsible for it?
If
We didn't
want-
cause it.
If we want this to move forward, we're responsible for it.
We're responsible for paying for it, but we didn't cause the need for it.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, it stinks.
You know, I think the people that cause the need for it are the people that should pay for it.
Well, we actually asked Reclamation, and this really starts to frazzle me a little bit, but we asked Reclamation, we said, hey, we gave you 95 grand to do your administrative work
Mm-hmm.
on our $250,000 contract. We'd like to have you evaluate your budget and see what you've got as an overage, so that you could pay for what what needed to be done because of your, reticence on providing information. And they said, we spent all the money on who knows what, but they don't have money left.
Yeah, well. So I say they're just extorting more money.
Well, indirectly, the Bureau is forcing us to spend money if we want to continue the progress.
I think we tell them no and let the senators and the Congress know their screw up, that they're trying to stick us for the bill.
Yeah?
It's just outrageous.
So are you recommending we pay this?
Well, my big umbrella view of this is that I think it's a pretty good idea that we try to get the project completed to the point that we could move it to the Bureau for a potential operational study. And we need to do some additional stakeholder work and maybe a little bit of minor modeling based on that input to get to that stage.
And was one of the side benefits of this that we might get that valve fixed at Dakota with the cavitation issue?
It could be it could be an outcome that would be realized if during the operational study, it was identified that critical flow volume in there was gonna impact, some significant operations on the reservoir. Right now, it's kind of, sort of plugged in, but not really. What happens is they set that, and it's kind of confusing to me, they set the valve like in the fall. And, you know, if you've watched the flows all winter, they go way down into that range where it's supposed to cause a lot of cavitation. But apparently, it's just based on head pressure, and they don't have to change it. So I think there's still a problem with the valve. And maybe in the end result, that would be part of a thing that they would evaluate during an operational study, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. It's kind of a return on investment calculation, and I don't know enough to, I guess I would probably defer to your recommendation.
It's to some degree, it's all a gamble. You know, we wrote this grant because we thought we could do something better with reservoir operations based on the master's student work. Now it looks like, yep, we can probably do something better. We've got to get that to the point where the Bureau says, let's look and see how that might work.
I guess my thought is we started down this road knowing that there may be some bumps in the way. And I think we ought to just go ahead and say, let's pay the extra $27,000, let's proceed and get this thing to the end to where it needs to be for reclamation. The only other thing with that is Barr had, remember I asked you about, Barr had a kind of a little statement in there that depending on the future stakeholder input, I didn't bring the thing with me, it was something like that,
Yeah.
that there may be some additional costs to wrap it up.
And I had responded to that after you made the comment asking Miguel, like, hey, what are the additional costs? And he pretty much sent us back the same email that he had stated of what the plans were, but no actual financing on that. So I can follow up and,
Okay, 'cause
Additional on top of the 27,000?
well, this would be something that, what it would take for Barr to complete with, depending on how the stakeholder input goes from here on out. Those are always, you know, kind of variables that you can't really tie down because you don't know what your stakeholders are gonna react to in the model. And so they've got some money in there, but, you know, if all of a sudden they get some reaction and they want, the stakeholders wanna do additional studies or additional model runs, it may cost us more money for those. And I guess we'd be up to decide, it'd be up to us to decide, well, are we gonna run those models for stakeholders or not? And there may be some cost to running. Again, we started out in the project, I'd like to get it done to where we can give reclamation a project or a product that says, here's what it is, here's what the stakeholders have said, and whether there was a bobble along the way in modeling, there's always some bobble in modeling. You know, I think it's worth our time and our money to go ahead and say, let's finish this thing.
So just like the war, it's never ending?
Well, I hope not.
Yeah.
Sure
That's,
sounds like it.
Well, we would have control. We could probably easily work with Barr on really quantifying what this change order would say and not leave any, in quotes, blue sky. So we know exactly what we're gonna get, and then at that point, we're done.
Until we have the next stakeholders meeting.
No,
And then
that-
Rex
that-
says,
that
well,
would
we can't do
include-
anything with this model until you incorporate this new stakeholders information.
I think we heard enough at the stakeholders meeting to know what this, another run might be. Rapid City was really interested in a predetermined low water elevation. Some of the model runs allow it to go up and down more from a fixed elevation that is considered low. So they wanted a fixed elevation. They said they could incorporate that pretty easily. And we know we don't need to do another model run, we just need to do an analysis of it. When there's 500 CFS or more that would be released that cause issues for landowners. So I don't think there's a whole lot of stuff that might come forward. I think we could quantify it and just say we're done at that point. Anything further someone else is gonna have to go investigate it at the point when they do a reservoir operations investigation. That's the way I'd approach it. I wouldn't wanna have like, well, maybe, maybe, maybe. I'd wanna just can it.
Yeah.
And have that change order say, here's what we're gonna do, and we're done.
I think that's a good idea.
Is there a motion, or
I'll move to approve.
is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Karen.
And since it's a $27,000 deal, we gotta vote on it twice.
Can we put that amount in the motion?
Yeah.
Yep. 27.
Unless we wanna cap it at 25 and tell them we're done then. I mean, that's possible too.
Hadn't thought about that, yeah.
I mean, we can do it simply at one meeting and just say, here, this is the budget that we're gonna allow you to work with, and we're done.
At 27, it's gonna require 2 votes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, yeah. Let's just do 25. If we can approve that and then work with them on the change order to get what we need to go forward.
Does second approve the friendly
Yeah,
change?
I'd approve that.
Okay. Motion by Coe, seconded by Kara to approve a $25,000 additional funding request for the Deerfield Pactola study. Discussion on the motion?
And it will be conveyed, this is it, right? And this is gonna wrap the project up and I'll send it to BOR. Cause I'm with McGregor, I just don't wanna keep getting nickel and dimed after this for this thing or that thing and get her done if it's gotta be done.
Any other discussion from the board?
I would like to kind of hear from Reclamation, you know, if we're doing it at 25,000, I mean, if we were doing it at 27,000, you know, we'd have time to say, well, let's sit down between now and our second vote. You know, with the 25,000, it's kind of all done here. Are we just spinning wheels to meet again with Reclamation? You know, I'd kind of like to hear directly from them. I had asked the question, you know, at that meeting, well, where does this take us next? And, you know, the answer wasn't necessarily real straightforward that we got. You know, well, the next step would be to see if the director will put this into the pipeline, was kind of the gist of the answer.
It's gonna take some advocacy on our part and maybe even our congressionals to get Bureau to accept it as a reservoir operations, you know, initiative. So, but I don't know. I've been in all of these meetings, whether they're in the webinars or not, and I do personally, I don't see a big benefit in talking with Reclamation more. This is between us and BAR, and we're gonna tell them what we're gonna do that what we know of today to get this done. And then we're done with you know, the modeling effort, and we try then to get it moved into, you know, the Bureau director decision-making process or whatever. And that's where we have to rely probably on our congressionals, because.
Well, BAR's kind of an innocent party in this too. They didn't do anything wrong.
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
they're out nothing at this point of the game. Part of my overall discomfort, whether discomfort's the right word or not, you know, Reclamation, this should really be kind of a partnership. You know, we recognize there's some issues
I
here.
don't disagree.
And
It's a
so-
partnership where we give them money and they go, thanks.
Say, and then they say, we want more.
The-
That's not good enough.
Well, to me, it would feel better if, you know, they would sit down at the table with us and, you know, we could kick this around is kind of one of the realities. And, you know, part of it may be on my part. Maybe I've had a misimpression, you know, at this stakeholder meeting, seemed to be quite a few people didn't really fully understand what all the purpose of the study was in the first place and whatnot. And I'd thrown out this bit about the gates and, you know, recognizing there's more to it than that, but that's kind of the simplest explanation. Well, you know, what I'd said was my impression was that the minimum release through the main gate, you know, at full conservation pool, it's head dependent, it doesn't change necessarily a lot, but was somewhere around 32 or 35 cubic feet per second. And, you know, afterwards, you know, talking with folks from Game and Fish about a couple things, they said, well, hell, it's been running 25 cubic feet per second all winter. Oh, really? And so I checked with my, you know, with the USGS office, you know, is this gauges can lie a little bit. Well, it was pretty confident that 25 seemed to be a good solid number. So my next step, I checked in with Ron Bangs, and as it turns out, 25 cubic feet per second is in fact what they seem to use as their minimum number from the main gate. And, you know, I don't know how much would be on the top of your head relative to that, Craig?
It's been a lot of years, but I thought we were higher than that.
Yeah, the definite design report says 35 at full pool.
Right.
And so these are the kind of things that Barr ran into, and it was revealed in that tech review. So they had to keep going back and basically interrogating both the city and Reclamation. In fact, Reclamation had to drag in one of their retired employees to figure out what they actually did with the water.
And
I have
also,
very low confidence in the local bureau.
Also, Reclamation's done some cavitation repair up there.
Well, 3 winters ago, they dried the creek
Yeah.
up. Emergency repair.
Yeah, and we weren't doing cavitation repair when I was there. We weren't having that kind of damage.
I don't know.
So if you're gonna release lower flows, smaller gate openings, you're gonna have cavitation.
Right. So maybe they've changed their mind based on local pressure for more water in the winter. And then they pay the price with cavitation repair. Who knows?
Right. And I mean, that's part of the reason it'd be useful to talk with them, and, you know, maybe we would never get an answer from them back when, you know, I didn't, but I mean, you know, Ron Bangs did send me a document, black and white, says 25 cubic feet per second is their minimum. And, you know, probably what they used to do is say, well, let's not push that, let's keep it at 35. And
I never liked to damage gates. If gates started to get damaged, you could do something else.
right.
I think we got the answer though. Ron, you had it earlier when you said, we asked him about what happened to the 95,000. They said, we don't have any more money. I think that's Reclamation's answer. They're not gonna have any more money, even if we sit and talk with them for a while.
I wouldn't be expecting any more money. I guess what I'd like to have is just to sit down discussion with them and really find out where, you know, once we finish this, what are we gonna do next? Or
I think that's the time that we have our discussion, because the discussion about wherever they set the gate is irrelevant in a lot of ways to finishing up this model. And that's our responsibility if we want to carry it forward. Barr has been working on Reclamation for 1.5 years to try and get answers on how they operate the reservoir. They can't hardly pull it out of them. I don't know if we're going to gain anything by doing that, but I think that if we do have a model that meets the tech center's requirements, we can go down and we can, if we have to somehow go around the local people who don't want to talk to us or tell us what's going on, we can use basically the regional office review and say, hey, we'd like to see this put into a plan to evaluate at the director level. I think we just spin our wheels at the local office. I don't think it benefits us at all.
Well, and I'm not necessarily talking about the locals when I say talk with reclamation. That aside, I've belabored it long enough. No more questions from me. Discussion.
Seeing no more questions, all those in favor of the motion state by stating aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
You want your name on the record, Scott?
Yes.
Okay. 1 no, McGregor.
Just say this is kind of playing out like I thought it would when we started.
You did mention that. I will stick that. Item number 13, Earth Day report.
Yeah, we had another good Earth Day celebration. We had a booth out there for the event. I was there for about 3 hours, from like 10:30 in the morning till 1 o'clock or so, and Dan joined me for a while. I don't know what happened after that, if anybody else went out, but we had some good discussions with people. I thought there was a better crowd of adults this year than last year, it seemed to me, for the time that I was out there. I think it was a worthwhile effort to keep engaged, let people know we're here, fly the flag a little. We're one of these operations, when you tell them who we are, they go, what? And I say, well, look at your tax bill, you've got a $6-7 assessment from us for that. And they said, oh, well, I wondered what that was.
You got a latte assessment.
I said, well, that's us. So I would encourage us to keep doing it, as we go along. I think, as I mentioned last year, we ought to come up with something that's perhaps a little more interactive with the crowd, a straw poll for, an issue of the day or something that, that is, or a prediction of how long the drought is gonna last, or things like that. Come up with something like that that could engage the public a bit more.
The drought, it's gonna break this month.
Pardon?
It's gonna break in
It's
a
gonna
week.
break this month, you bet. I thought it would break because I bought a new lawnmower. I mean, we didn't have those books to hand out this year. I think everybody's gotten rid of those, so.
Well,
It's always worthwhile to have some sort of little gimmick to pass out to the crowd at events like this. So we should, my recommendation would be that we do it again and put some thought into coming up with a little something or other.
Yeah, Dan.
I'd had a thought it might be worth checking with, at least the local DA in our office and see if they might want to team up on, kind of the water agencies. And
Does anybody have a stream table?
A what
Locally?
table?
A stream table?
I didn't see one, no.
They're a hoot.
No.
Yeah, Western Dakota, I know's got one.
We should get that. It's a hoot.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Every
Yeah.
kid in town will wanna play.
Yep, no, they got Western Dakota, their environmental engineering program.
Mm-hmm.
They got one, and I don't know if they use that anymore because they kind of switched over with their director, their head of their department, and they started to focus. Well, originally Alan Heaton was the head of that department.
Right.
Well, then he retired, and they got somebody else in there decided they wanted to focus more on aquaculture rather than. So I would bet that stream table probably just sits there.
We ought to
Well,
get that.
I'd asked about, the rainfall runoff infiltration, whatever device. Sounds like that needs to be outdoors,
Yeah,
but
yes.
if they've got something like that, fine, and if not, I'm pretty sure we could afford to buy one, whatever they cost.
Yeah, but they've got one.
Right, if they've
there.
got one, but
Maybe they could even house it.
Well, they do house it, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
I'll check with a couple of folks at DANR and see if they'd wanna get, I think
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to have our own table. They have a tough time doing things like paying for sponsorships,
Well,
We
can
don't,
we
so-
can do that.
Right, we can pay for it and they can join us easily
You know,
enough.
if they could
you know,
help us
so.
man it and interact with the public, I think that'd be good.
Have we thought about the conservation district, since we're just thinking of organization? I know they're a little bit.
I'd just go with DANR at this
Yeah.
point in time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could, another option might be, this is an indoor event,
Yeah.
draws from just the city or surrounding
All
areas?
over region.
The region,
There's hundreds and hundreds of people go through there,
okay.
many of them.
It's something that we did a number of years ago, and the technology exists out here now, because I gave it to them. Rural Water, the regional office here, has a spectrophotometer that can do nitrate, analyze nitrate using infrared, or no, UV light, not infrared. Anyway, pour the sample in the machine, hit the button, and you get a nitrate number. And it takes a Ziploc bag, and it takes longer to load the water into the machine than it does to run the test. And so, what they'll do from time to time, and we've done, and we're gonna be doing again, is, come in and get your water tested for nitrate.
I think somebody was doing that, weren't they, Dan?
Yeah,
Yes,
they were testing there,
Were they?
yeah.
Yeah, they were passing it, you can get nitrate testing kits from them as well.
Oh, okay. Say, Rural Water's got one of our old units. Kevin's always looking for stuff to do with it, so.
They gave us 4 T-shirts and 3 of them have been dispersed, but there is one extra large here that's up for grabs. We'll just set it there and somebody can claim it afterwards.
I'm just looking for extra large people.
Well, that would be too big for me, of course, but I think somebody can hold it up there and see.
I'd like to thank you guys for manning that booth. I had a wicked cold that day and was in bed most of the day, and I felt bad that I could not.
Time goes fairly quick when you actually start talking to people and drawing them in.
They had you kind of crammed in there, though.
Yeah, that corner, you might want to talk about a little better location. We're in a good spot in the sense that we're on a corner, so everybody is coming by, but it's also a very small space that we're crammed into, so.
Well, we can get larger, actually. I told them I wanted to be there, and they had us in a table that was elsewhere. And,
Yeah.
and the reason for being there was we could hang posters there. Well, we probably should get some things that you just hang posters on, so we don't tape them to the wall if we're gonna put posters
Just
up and just.
Get a couple of easels.
Yeah, well, and right, I mean, they make
Put 'em
these
on
devices just, and that holds your poster there. So,
The only problem I had is I did get caught, a guy walked by that I knew that I didn't want to have to talk to, and damn, he stopped and started talking to me.
Yeah.
No, Paul Jensen.
Just a question, is the city usually plan their citywide cleanup on that day? Because this is the second year in a row I've committed to do the cleanup on the day.
The citywide cleanup is usually, well, the 24th, 25th, that week
Yeah,
of that, so, yeah, it's,
usually our Optimist group does that Saturday,
Veterans
so
Day.
next year I'll just say no so I can attend.
Okay. Item 14, information, erosion control committee projects report, and that is Director Driscoll.
in the interest of time, I'll just say only that the projects that we worked on late last fall and early winter, we got about 0.6 of an inch of preset measured at the airport there. Something going on a month ago, and it kind of surprised me that several of the north-facing slopes, pretty much only at mines, but actually started some fairly nice germination, and then since then everything is just in a holding pattern. So, like Ron said, we need rain. Beyond that, anything from other committee members to add?
Thank to,
If you go by the airport, that's, doesn't necessarily say what they're getting either.
Well, that's what they
'Cause
got.
I live a mile from, okay.
Anyhow, that's what they reported. And anyhow, that's the sum total of what we've had since, early March.
okay, item 15, discussion and review of request for the Attorney General opinion, and it has McGregor's name on it.
Okay,
As you can see, the opinion is on pages,
17 to 20.
yep. And so Director McGregor, as requested by the board, and I went through, discussed it, and then wrote the letter.
Oh,
and
Ron
then
participated too.
What? Oh,
You and I and Ron.
yep. And then sent it to the Attorney General as requested by the board in the previous minutes. We did send a copy to you, Jay. You got it via email. I know that you have probably some thoughts on it. I'll let you,
Okay.
I know I'm
Yeah,
rambling.
this is why Jay is gracing us at this meeting, because as he points out, the response we get back, if we do get one, will apply not only to what we do, but conceivably to what every other water development district in the state does. But based on our discussions of the last meeting and the directions that the board gave to Director Matkoff and myself, we put together this letter to the Attorney General that was sent in, a week ago now?
Yes.
Or thereabouts. And it's basically premised around the discussions we had over the erosion control activities we're doing in funding up on Star Village, and the funding request and our discussion over it we received from Black Gap for the dam maintenance and repair at that homeowners association. So I've laid it out with a little factual statement that describes those two scenarios over which we kind of had a conflict over whether we should be funding them ourselves, identifying some of the key statutes within the code provisions for the water development districts themselves, and then asked several questions specifically. The first being, what is the definition of a water resources project? If you look at that, if you look at the definition on page 18 for the statute there, it's incomprehensible. I can make a good case that the only water resources project that includes is something that has to do with hydroelectric power, and I'm pretty sure that's not what's intended, but just what is or is not included. So we first asked what actually is a definition that's meaningful for the purpose of water district development activities. And then beyond that, the two key questions we asked on page 20, whether the district can fund undertakings conducted by the district itself on public and private lands, like the erosion control projects we've been doing, and if so, under the statute that requires private financial participation, how are we to make that determination of what that amount should be? And then similarly, the third question, whether the district may assist funding water development activities for private groups like a homeowners association, where the ultimate project that's being funded was not necessarily, publicly accessible to the public at large. And again, if we fund that, under what proportion of funding is required to be paid by the private entity itself. So we really kind of encapsulated the two key discussions we've had over the last several meetings about the erosion control stuff we're doing ourselves on both public and private land, and project funding assistance we had been requested to make for private groups, and hopefully we'll get operational answers from this. Now, the Attorney General is under no obligation to accept this request for an opinion. It's entirely discretionary whether he wants to respond to this or not. He could just say, I don't deem these questions to be of significant public import, so I'm declining to issue an opinion on them. Or he could take it and go ahead and issue an opinion on it. If he does that, there's no time frame by which it has to happen. I think we should assume that it would be later rather than sooner that we might get an opinion. And so then that raises the question that we should all think about as to whether we want to keep funding various projects that come before us, absent having gotten a response from the Attorney General. But that's what we've done with it. I'm sure Jay has something to add.
When it's appropriate. Yes.
So are there any questions about the letter?
I guess maybe I've jumped to Jay. Do you guys deal with proportioning how much money comes from private landowners versus the public benefit? You know, so the private landowner might contribute 20%, say, or
It depends on the situation involved. Certainly, you know, in a general sense, if and when we are asked, well, okay, a couple of things. One, we typically don't get involved, East Dakota, in dirt and diesel types of activities. There's simply too many people, too many entities within East Dakota, and our levy, although it raises a reasonable amount of money, isn't up to the task. Once you start, you know, if we buy a new water, we help Coleman buy a new water tower, then every other little town in the district, including the big town, are gonna want that level of funding. That said, if we are involved, yeah, we would typically, rarely provide 100% of the funding for something. You know, if we're doing something in conjunction with, you know, Minnehaha County, they've got a vested interest in doing that. We may agree that there is a public benefit that fits under our definition, and so we would participate. But if they said, well, yeah, we've got this really good idea, and we'd like you to pay 100% of the cost, it better be a damn good idea. And about the only thing I can think of right now, or for where that's worked, or for investigations or studies that we have officially solicited. You know, we're asking SDSU to do something, or school mines, or something like that. Or it's an activity like a riparian buffer where we, you know, in essence, there is the landowners under little or no obligation to do what we would like them to do, but there is tremendous public benefit from that activity. And in the long run, we think that the board's decided that's an acceptable thing to do. We do not have a fixed rate, which is sort of, you know, I read the question in the letter is, you're kind of looking for something like that. It's just something that's discussed each time, but in general, yeah, we would not do something on private ground that benefits only a private individual with all of our funds. We wouldn't do that on public ground either. There's no benefit to the public at large. Now, if, you know, putting up a water retention dam that's gonna catch all the crap coming out of the an open pit mine on the McGregor property, and the dam's entirely on his property, there's a huge public interest in keeping that crap off of, in his lake, and on the public side, so that would be a consideration, but we don't have a fixed rate or anything like that that goes into those things.
Could we ask you another question? Do you consider in-kind contribution? Materials, work, labor, machinery? Okay.
Yeah. And now, and you know, to the discussion earlier about the request from the coalition.
Yeah.
That needs to be not only articulated, but documented. You know, if you're gonna say, well, we'll provide in-kind match. Okay, well, what's that gonna mean?
Right.
You know, again, we, you know, and don't wanna pick on these, we'll pick on these guys because they're not here. And you all said some of the same things, but they have identified a project and activity and only identified $75,000 worth of costs. 100% is they're requesting of you, which they're certainly free to do. They talk about, well, other people are gonna help. Well, great, tell us what that number is gonna be. if other people are gonna work 5 hours on that for $35 an hour, you know, okay, it's $150 or whatever the math is, versus the $75,000 contribution. That's not, you know, so that would be a case of, as I think you were doing, is saying, we need the full cost of what's going on and a breakdown of where our money is going to go, and then to one of the Dans I brought up, maybe there are additional funders that could be identified. Or place it in context of the bigger project, so that this piece of the big picture, we are being asked to fund, but it's a $250,000 effort, and this is how it all works in. Your contribution is gonna pay for this piece, but in conjunction, there's all this other stuff going on. So,
I think one problem we have is, you know, every other water district is multi-county. We're not only not multi-county, we don't even cover a single county. You know, we're just Pennington, west of the Cheyenne. And so, you know, given that limitation, there's not a lot that we can do. Like East District and its work on the Big Sioux River, you know, up and down the river, we don't have any projects like that that, you know, would come into being. And, you know, we need to come up with some plan to get rid of the money we have. You want a loan of $1 million?
sure, I'm not sure what, I built, as you know, I built up a war chest too, so.
You know, I mean,
I'm trying to think of ways to spin that.
It's sad that we can't get more buy-in from the city for Rapid Creek, for example, to come to us with some projects that we can assist with, or, you know, jointly fund, or the county even.
I had a question for Jay, if it's okay.
Sure.
Do you, when you're looking at how you receive requests, do you look at how the Conservation Commission on an annual basis establishes their docket for the things that they do? Where they have, excuse me, well, let's say riparian buffers or something. And you would have then, you know, well, we would pay a maximum of this much, and the landowner would be required to have a minimum of this much real cash and this much in kind. They have that all delineated out for everything that they cost share. And there's minimums and maximums so that it helps them not have to do these one-offs all the time. They've got guidelines. Do you have anything like that?
Yes, we do. I mean, you know, with regard to the Conservation Commission, you know, they have their pool of funds. It's very, relatively speaking, very limited amount of money, $600,000-700,000 a year, something like that, and 69 conservation districts, all with their hand up. And yeah, you need, I think it's important that any funding entity have some kind of guidelines in place, so that, to answer the questions for the commission, okay, well, here's what we've decided we want to see, here's what we want to see, so if it works, great, then it's easy. They're still put in a position of having to decide, how do we, you know, we can't fund the 10 projects that all qualify, we can only fund 7, so which 7 do we do? But at least they can eliminate 6 or 7 other ones that didn't even meet the match. Yeah. And so we have similar approaches on that, whether it's for support the district provides directly, for the watershed restoration projects that we are actively involved with. Each practice has a set of requirements, much like NRCS would have, or something like that. If you want to enroll in SRAM, this is what you have to do.
Right. Can you share those kinds of things with us? Because like Director Mullally, and he's circulated a few things to some of us already, and I think it's kind of the thing that we need to do going forward is kind of figure out how we're going to evaluate various kinds of projects, even within the context of when we get a 319. Somebody comes in and hey, they got an idea, how are we gonna do this without having everyone be, every time be a one-off? I think we need a system.
Well, guidelines would definitely
I'll
help.
give one of these to Larry, just so he's got one for the record. Mr. Chairman, if it's okay with you. Couple of, just first off, as Scott noted, a request to the Attorney General, while it may or may not bear fruit, will impact all the water development districts. What if he chooses to give an answer, that's gonna have an impact on all of us. And so, yeah, when I became aware of what you all were gonna do, I got a little nervous. And hi, I'm here today for that reason. When you get another idea like that, call or let us know ahead of time, as Director Mullally now would note, and some of you have been around a while. I've initiated or collectively supported a variety of changes to water development district law over the years at the legislative level, but I've always done that with the full knowledge of the other districts. Let them know what's gonna happen, because obviously there are implications. So anyway, we'll, let that there. What I have distributed is a note, and I shared some of this stuff with Scott earlier. He and I had a conversation because he was listed on the deal. And the thumbnail sketch is when I started with East Dakota 32 years ago in June. Very long time ago. But I think at that point I'd still probably already met Driscoll before that. And I worked with Scott's dad. But I had the advantage of the 9 board members, the 9 people who hired me, had collectively over 90 years of board service. Institutional memory. One of my directors, Earl Atchison, had been on the board at that point for 31 years. He was an original Conservancy sub-district board member, and Scott can explain what those were, because we go back that far. And so if there was a question about what to do, their collective memory was available, and they could explain it to me, or I could pick that up. Over time, of course, those guys have migrated off the board. Most of them have migrated off the planet. And I've got directors who, well, yeah, my longest serving director now is maybe 13 years, 14 years tops. I'm 32. I'm the institutional memory. And that is a big help to the, but at some point is understood, like Larry, I am not in charge of East Dakota as much as I may think I am. The board is. And the board doesn't necessarily always like the idea of me telling them, well, this is my recommendation, this is why we do what we do. Why? Because we've always done it that way. That's not an acceptable response. And so, and to some extent, I see you guys as sort of being in that same position right now. There's uncertainty about what to do next. Unfortunately, you don't have much in the way of institutional memory. I'm thinking Mr. Driscoll is probably the longest serving director right now.
Nope, it's me by
Thomas?
6 months.
Okay, I knew it was one of the two of you.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with that.
There's several of us on here.
Yeah, that go back, but that's 8 years?
Yeah, 8.
Yep.
Like I said, Earl was on for 40.
I won't be there for 40.
No, he hired, and that's gonna bite us in the ass in the long run too. But anyway, about 15 years ago, it got to a point where the boards, it was getting to be a difficulty. And so what we did, and I understand that there was at least a nascent effort to try and do this, is we brought in a mediator or somebody to facilitate a conversation amongst the board members to talk about things like 46A, 3A, 1.1. What does this mean? What do you think it means? My personal opinion is it's open to almost anything. I'm not gonna argue with Scott that you could make a case for a very narrow definition, but you could be.
You can make case for.
You could make a case, if water's involved, we can be involved.
Yeah.
But it doesn't say that if water's involved, you have to be involved.
Yeah.
And it talks about district priorities. We had established, I had gleaned from my old board, sort of their priorities. What would Earl do was the question I always ask myself. I relayed that to the new board. They eventually said we need to sit down and figure that out. And so we had a day-long session with the facilitator. I was in the room to answer questions only. And we came up with the results of that is the last piece of paper in that bundle that I handed out. And sort of settled on 4 basic ideas and a few other things, like the part where we don't do construction because we simply cannot afford to. And even if somebody comes in with the best idea in the world and all they need is $25,000 from us to build this thing, my first thought is, how many other people in our 11 counties are gonna wanna build one of those too, and do we have $25,000 times that number of people? So if they wanna do it, and we've done it about a half a dozen times, there were extenuating circumstances out the yin-yang. So I could tell anybody who came in, yes, we gave Thomas the money for this reason, and this reason alone, and even though you are seemingly proposing to do almost the exact same thing, it isn't the same, and no, we're gonna tell you to go away, just like we've told everybody else. But again, the board is empowered under 3A 1.1 to set their priorities. Whatever you wanna do, you can do. If you wanna only do engineering work, do that. If you wanna, promote various things, and there are 4 items, there are 4 sort of areas covered on our memo, first that page. Educate, you all get involved with that. West Dakota, the Earth Day activities, and so forth. Advocate, get out there, use the bully pulpit. Promote, and be proactive on something. Those were the things that we had been doing. Those were the things that the board 15 years ago kind of came back to or settled on or figured out eventually that that's what they were all talking about. And so you all can answer the question. Can you be involved in a private project that benefits only the private individual? If the board thinks there is a benefit to the public writ large because of that activity, yes, you can. But you don't have to. Or can you require Mr. Mack to contribute to an activity? Not as an individual, say, as a community or something like that? Yeah, you're free to do whatever you want to do. But right now, absent a tremendous amount of institutional memory, maybe it would be appropriate to sit down and map out what the 9 current members of the board think are appropriate. Understanding that you're not wrong. I mean, you can agree to do a few things that are probably going to be outside the pale, but it's a pretty big envelope. And the harder part is making it smaller and manageable. There are 7 water development districts across the state. We all have the same code. We all work off the same idea. There are a lot of activities that we all do together. There are lots of things that, that we do that nobody else does. There's some stuff that other districts get involved with that just they keep me awake at night sometimes. But you know what? They're free to do that. And they're not breaking the law. And
That we know of.
Huh?
That we know of.
That we know of. But to date, and there's been an awful lot of hooting and hollering, and again, this base code goes back to the late 1950s. I think 57 is when the Conservancy Subdistrict Code was originally put together, and that pretty much came through intact in 84 when the water development districts were created. And so it's an idea that has survived to this point. And yeah, I again, happy to answer any questions, share whatever you'd like. I think personal opinion would be, having sort of experienced this with my own board a few years back, I think sitting down and kind of, what do you think is we ought to be involved with, would be really advantageous.
Could you serve as a facilitator?
I would,
Just say yes.
We'd pay you.
I would be, I guess, to follow up on earlier comments about potential conflicts of interest. I have very strong feelings about how water development districts work, if you haven't figured that out. And if you haven't, ask Dan, he can probably tell you. I would certainly be willing to help in whatever case. In our instance, what we ended up with, and Dan, I don't know, did you ever work with Pat Hammond, Patricia Hammond down in Vermillion? This would have been early.
I
Dick?
know the name,
Okay, yeah, Patty was.
You know, Dick Hammond.
right.
Yeah, Dick Hammond, yeah,
Patty's-
it's his sister,
yeah.
anyway.
Sister.
Patty was a hydrogeologist who worked for the South Dakota Survey, which is where I came from back in the 80s and early 90s. So she understood the big picture stuff, but in the middle of that career decided she wanted to do something different, and is now a retired Presbyterian minister. So she had the sort of the people skills and everything to facilitate a group meeting, plus the knowledge of the science, if you will, the subject. She was a subject matter expert as well, but it was really, we brought her in as the facilitator, and I was there to simply answer questions. I'd be happy to give it a try. If, Scott allowed that this was explored maybe a while ago, if there's somebody around here that could help just glean answers out of it, I'd be happy to, do like I've done here today or did with our board, is answer, here's the history behind it. But, yeah.
No, here's a
I would, yes, I mean.
here's I wouldn't say a stupid question, but with the board transitioning again at the January 1st, would it be better to have this meeting after that with the new members, or have it with the current set, if we were going to go down this route?
I would think, my opinion is, right now, you have as much institutional memory as, again, I recall, Ron, both you and Thomas are.
Yep, and Dan.
And Dan. I know, you're the three, but
Yeah.
the two of you have not refiled?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so two of your three longest tenured members are about to go off the board. You aren't doing the class at 27 any favors necessarily by depriving that conversation of that collective memory. God forbid we leave Dan, as the old guy. That's just too scary. But
Director Driscoll has refiled.
yes, I know. That much I knew. Yeah. But I mean, no. I would think, like I said, I think you're going to end up. But like I said, I look at the situation and I think of my own deals. I had the benefit of an old guard when I came on board to learn from, and my subsequent board has benefited from the fact that I've been around forever. Now, when I walk out the door, they're going to have some issues, because kind of like you guys, this cycle around, four of my four most senior members are from odd-numbered districts. They're also odd, but they're from odd-numbered districts. Theoretically, all four of them could have been off the board. Oh my God. We'd look to you guys as a bunch of old farts, long-termers if that happens. So, no, long answer, very long answer. I think if you're gonna do something, I think if you've got access to members of what constitutes the old guard, I would do that with them involved. Let the new guys decide to change it if they want, but, because the question, oh, hey, didn't we get this query a few years ago? Well, nobody knows that, you know, except the three of you or something like that. So. But I here to, one, see how it's going. Don't do it again. No. But yeah, I think, yeah, each district board is empowered to do what they want to do within a pretty big box. And so it's just a matter of sitting down and deciding what we're comfortable with. And certainly, yeah, paying for everything, no, that's gotta be a really rare exception. But, you know, cooperating, fine. What you do, great. You know, to Director McGregor's point about the aerial size, you're still, well, Vermillion has finally expanded, but for the longest time, it was just Clay and Turner counties were the Vermillion Basin Water Development District, and they were involved in a number of different things.
Still bigger than us.
They had two whole counties, but they're two pretty small counties. And the tax base they had access to was a fraction of what is here. You could do things or work together with neighbors.
And of course, much of what we might do is also involved with the plethora of federal agencies and government agencies that we have with the hills that other districts don't contend with.
Yep, you got that access, and I'll be perfectly honest, you've got a resource sitting at the head of the table. One of the reasons I got hired was because of where I came from and the background I had. I came out of DENR, I guess at the time, DW when I started, but had that backward. I'm the only water development district manager, or have been for almost the entire time I've been, that had a background in the area in which the districts spend a lot of time. You are now the other group that's got somebody, I mean, that at least is in the neighborhood of what Larry's background is. You know, Brad Preheim, my cohort with the Vermillion Basin District, is a personal banker, sells insurance, you know. Dave Bartell, who ran the James River District for the longest time, was in the National Guard, and so forth. You know, there are only a couple of us that are full-time anyway. And so I would look at, again, as time goes on, you know, you have a resource in your administrative staff that other districts don't have, or not every district has. So. And I'll quit talking, but yeah, I would be more than willing to help. Like I said, my hesitancy on being the facilitator is, if you haven't figured out, I have some strong feelings on some of this stuff. And that may not necessarily translate into addressing the problem. But having identified that, I will do whatever I can to help you do that. So.
Thanks for the comments, Jay. We good on this, Scott, or you wanna flush it out some more?
I'm
Okay.
done. I mean, at this point, unless somebody has questions, we just wait and see what kind of response we get. Like I said, the other thing we need to think about, depending on what comes up, is do we proceed forward as best we can in the absence of hearing, from the Attorney General?
Probably won't get anything.
I guess, as the broad base of the statutes that I would interpret as it's one of those situations where you ask forgiveness, not permission. You just plow ahead, and if somebody says, well, you violated the law, we go, oops, sorry, we didn't know that. It's such a mess, we couldn't figure it out.
Well, that is part of my responsibility.
Jay Gilbertson said we could do it.
Well, for my board is, okay, why are we doing this? And it gets the same thing on the other side is, no, we're not gonna do this. Why? Here's why. I'm not comfortable that this covers it. Now, fortunately, it's pretty broad, and if you can do that, then fine. Was it a water-related project? Yes. Did the board discuss it at a meeting? Yes. Was a public vote taken? Yes. All the boxes are checked. It still might have been a really stupid idea in hindsight, but there was nothing wrong with it because everything that was supposed to happen happened. You just don't want to do that all the time. And, you know, that's why Larry's here. He's, no, knock it off. You know, get a stick out, whack a few people and say, don't do that. Yeah.
Well, I think it's what Jay said, you got this big box of things you can do. And I don't know that we want to restrict that unnecessarily, because that's why we have a board and that's why we take a majority vote. We discuss those things, and every situation is a little bit different. Seems like the whole problem is the question of the erosion control and a little bit the black gap, but we voted on those and we got a vote either yay or nay. So I don't know what problem we're trying to fix, but that's just me.
I think the problem we're trying to fix is a little more certainty in knowing what we're doing when we do it.
Well, yeah, we can come up with things and say no more erosion control and put it in our bylaws or policies and stuff like that, but maybe someday we might want to do erosion control.
I think it's a bigger question that we just need to, we kind of made our bed with the letter, and so we should see what happens and go from there, Alan. We had questions with the committee, and we probably should, and I apologize for not keeping you in the loop. But I wanted, and I've said this before, that I've been trying not to be so laissez-faire as a chair and actually get things done when things are requested of me. And so maybe I jumped a little bit quicker without talking, but it is what it is, and I think this was a great discussion, and thanks for driving all the way over, so hopefully the other parts of the visit are a little bit nicer.
This was fun.
Item 16 is discussion of potential future project funding opportunities for West Dakota, and that is Dan Driscoll.
Well, the reason I suggested that item, our next meeting in July will be the front end of our budget process. We're gonna start discussing what are we gonna do with this million and some odd dollar surplus that we're carrying and keeps getting bigger. I guess one quick question of Mr. Gilbertson. You said you had, you maybe alluded to a
we have a
substantial
capital
surplus.
reserve.
What's that?
We have a capital reserve.
Of how much?
Right now, probably $1.5 million. But that's taken me 32 years to accumulate.
Right.
We didn't have 2 nickels when I started. But we're at that same point where we need to, and so, yeah, we're looking for activities and projects. The other reason I'm out here today is Thomas Miller. But to do that,
Well, your tax base is quite a bit bigger than ours with Pennington County, or, I mean, Minnehaha County. And,
right.
And so in a relative sense, you know, relative to the tax base, ours is probably larger, but, you know, that aside, certainly there's a sense that if this surplus continues to grow, at some point in time, we need to, you know, reduce our request. And, you know, maybe we wanna, well, July comes up pretty quick. I guess we've opened the can of worms. You know, in terms of where could we spend money, I don't think any of us want to spend money for the sake of spending it. That doesn't seem to be a very good approach. In terms of areas of need, you know, I don't think it's any secret that in terms of, you know, influences on water quality of Rapid Creek, the urban stormwater runoff is is a big factor, you know, there's, properties being built up nowadays are required to have stormwater mitigation, it's very effective. There's a, you know, a big chunk of the city that was built before any sort of stormwater management was required, and, you know, we could spend millions of dollars fixing things that need to be fixed. You know, given time, we could develop programs to do that sort of work. It's kind of like alluding to a lot of this discussion, how do you put a program like that in place? Where do you start? Who's gonna pay what? Those are probably challenges we need to really start looking at. That aside, one of the other possibilities, of course, you know, I've felt kind of bad that we turned down this Black Gap project. You know, I don't think we're gonna do anything about, you know, the thought has floated around, might we vote on that again? You know, I think it's best to wait and see. I would assume the Attorney General will at some point in time either respond or they'll say, well, you know, we're not gonna answer you. You know, I don't think we wanna go there, you know, until then. I guess I mostly wanted to initiate the discussion, you know, do we think we can find ways to spend some of this money, or are we gonna say, well, let's start cutting back? One of the possibilities where we could spend money meaningfully, you know, we just had an update from Western Dakota. You know, odds are they can use more funding. I don't know that I really want to go out there and say, well, let's offer up some funding, you know. But I wanted to start the discussion, so I guess I'll leave it at that. And you know, the day is pretty late, and you know, it can be a fairly short discussion. That was why I threw
Well,
it on the agenda.
we can keep the levy the same too, which is what I proposed last year. I think Roy and I voted, or somebody voted with me on, maybe it was Mark. One comment?
Just one comment to follow along with Director Driscoll. I think that I'm guardedly optimistic that when we get these two protection plans done for 2 reaches of Rapid Creek watershed, that for our Pactola, basically to Canyon Lake, and Canyon Lake downstream to the sewer plant or whatever, that will incorporate all of these issues related to, you know, stormwater, et cetera. We're gonna get an idea of where we can devote some of our money fairly simply. Now, ideally, we have partners that wanna come in and, you know, use us as a mechanism to access that 60/40 cost share with the 319 program. But I guess in the worst case, if those partners don't come forward, and we have some kind of an approach to how we could prioritize, you know, some of the projects that would come through these protection plans, we could spend that money on the 40% side to get them done. And then we can burn $1 million in about 2 days. So I don't know that it's of concern to me, since we have these big planning projects out there, that we have a little bit of money available. Because if we don't have partners, we can be the partner with the 319 if we have to.
Well, we need a budget in July.
Right.
I just said what I said. I don't think it's a big deal to have a little money in the bank. I like money in the bank at my house.
And my problem, as I've said before, is I don't see us as a supplemental funding source to help other governmental entities pay for the stuff that they should be doing anyway, which is what we've been doing a lot of. You know, gosh, we know we should be doing this, but we don't have the money in the budget, so will you give us some money to help us with our little erosion control effort, like we're doing on the School of Mines right now, or have done out at Stevens High School, or Fifth City, even up at Star Village. So I think this district is uniquely situated to help small little projects. and get them done, get them developed, you know? Not these big studies, you know, I'd like to do the stuff like when we helped Keystone dig out their bridges from the accumulated gravel and, you know, things of that nature is, you know, what I think we ought to be doing.
I tend to agree with Scott, because, okay, we had Black Gap. Yeah, well, there's some issues, okay, private, public, but then I look at our HOA, we gotta update and rebuild our well house. We had a tree this big around fell on top of it this year.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're gonna be looking for some type of funding source. So, and I think that, as the gal said from Black Gap, we all pay taxes. When it all comes in there, and so far what I've seen, and nothing wrong with it, it's to benefit Rapid Creek. What about the people up above there that don't have, you know, the water access from Rapid Creek?
Yeah. And there's a lot of players in the Rapid Creek game, and not many players for some of this other stuff.
Yeah, that's,
You know?
I actually had a call yesterday from somebody that complained on that very issue. Are you guys the Rapid Creek Water Development District, or you represent helping other people too? Well, you can come in and propose something to us, and that's about all I can say.
Yeah.
And that's where really the problem is getting.
What happened to the
people
guy that called you and
proposals.
complained about his $5 assessment?
Is that the guy that you talked to?
There is a possibility, but
Okay.
I'll state that for chair's comments, what had
Okay,
happened.
Yeah, well, there are some ranchers that have a pretty high assessment
Right.
because it's based on assessed value, but there have been legislators that have been looking at this money that we have, and it's not my wife, by the way, and saying, how come you guys have so much money? One of them is Chris Johnson, he's not in there anymore, but just saying that.
What do you do, Jay? Do you just take routinely the highest assessment or the highest levy you can go for?
For a while, we went through the opt-out process back in the day.
Right.
Again, this goes back 30 years, but at the time, there was an absolute limit. I mean, in code, it currently says that a water development district's tax levy cannot exceed 0.3 of a mil. Yeah, right now, I think the highest levy, which would be 30 cents, the highest levy anywhere is James River, and they're at like 5.5 cents. So they're way below that. We're 1.8 cents. I don't know, Larry, any idea? You guys are probably in the same
Usually we're around 2 or something.
realm, couple pennies or whatever else. So yeah, we don't bring much. But there was also a $200,000 cap, regardless of what your mill rate was. And we had hit that the day after the district was created.
Right.
And so every year when the cost of pencils went up, we literally could not ask for more than 200,000. So our mill rate dropped month by month. So we went through and did an opt-out. We did 2 opt-outs actually. There were some other adjustments in the early 2010s that kind of stabilized that. And for a while, yeah, we would take, the board's approach was, let's take what we can. At the end of the day, we are inside the rounding error for the county, let alone the school district. If somebody's calling and complaining about the levy that you are hitting them with, they have too much free time in their hands. Because, again, rounding error for the school district. At the same time, but because of it, if you start backing away, and there was some talk, really all your predecessors, it might have been around, Thomas, when you guys were there, but
Yeah,
about, well, let's cut our levy back by half. Well, the trouble is, if if you're collecting 300,000 and you say we're gonna cut it back to 150, then next year somebody comes in with a cure for a common cold, you can't go back to 300.
No.
You've gotta take those incremental baby steps.
You could do an opt-out.
You can do an opt-out,
Yeah.
but that gets
Yeah.
tougher. Good luck out here doing an opt-out,
Good
by
luck
the way.
with
I'm
that.
sure that would
You
be-
could sneak them in. Our fire district does a $20,000 opt-out every year.
Yeah. Well, that's something, anyway, yeah,
Could be
the last couple of years, we held our levy stable. Just in case anybody asked. Now, we lost some territory, we gained some other stuff, and people were, gave up some territory, so we thought, well, it wouldn't look good if we raised it, even though we're a much smaller tax base. But at the end of the day, because of growth in the greater Sioux Falls area, and I mean, similar, you're gonna see the same thing here. Our effective mill rate is dropping every year, even if we took the maximum increase in the levy. We'd ask for 50,000 more dollars, and the mill rate would still drop by 1/10 of a penny, because there's just so much value there, and the growth is going on. Now, Vermillion doesn't have that issue, and Central Plains and the rest of them, but I suspect that might be the case here with Rapid City's growth, that the city is growing like a weed. And so, yeah, even if you took the max, it's still gonna be down because of their additional growth. But at least held steady. Council would be to hold your levy steady. If anybody asks, you can say, well, yes, we have built up a bit of a war chest. We didn't take any increase at all this year. Oh, that sounds impressive.
We can run the opt-out in conjunction with the school bond issue.
You really wanted to fail that quick?
I'm gonna end discussion just because of time and not
Thank
trying to be
you.
mean to anyone, but I think Dan is right, that it was a good thing to bring up to keep in our minds, especially with July coming. Item number 17 is discussion 2026 director elections petition and open positions, and that is director.
Just let you know where we're all at. The timeframe for filing petitions for seats has closed. District 1, which is Ron's district, Ron is not running again. But Scott Kenner, I don't know him, has filed petitions.
He's a
But
vice
he's the only one that filed petitions, so he'll be on the board. In District 3, Dan filed petitions again. Again, the only candidate, so Dan's elected. In District 5, Dan Mullally has filed petitions again, the only candidate in the district, so he's on the board. District 7, which is Thomas, and District 9, which are Craig, nobody filed in those two districts. So after the first of the year, we will need to find people to appoint to those positions, two of them. Two of them are open, and so we're gonna have to find people to appoint
Point Thomas and.
to those.
Craig.
Yeah, we can appoint Craig and Thomas
Yeah.
again to those seats, so any of you
And
know
they
that.
won't be here, so.
Failing.
All the seats up were the odd numbered districts this time around, the odd directors. So in 2 years, in 28, of those of us in even districts will be up. 5 this time around, 4 next time around. But we need to start thinking about 2 candidates to bring onto the board. We changed, with Jay's help, we changed the law to allow us simply to appoint those vacancies rather than going through another cumbersome petition process. So it'll be just up to us to find some people that want to serve and go on them.
Are we still looking for a chair?
Well, we'll deal with that the first of the year. We're gonna have to find somebody because Thomas will be gone,
Yeah, but I mean,
absent accepting a draft.
I see Director Malali's machinations going on. First, he's gonna appoint me, and then he's gonna nominate me back for chair. I think that's his plan. I think that's what he's getting at right here.
well, that could work too, yeah. I was just thinking you accept the chair kind of on a temporary basis, so.
Term undefined, right?
So, Jay, if you want to get a cabin in either District 7 or District 9,
Okay.
we could put you on the board.
All right, fair enough. I would note that you don't even have to appoint either Craig or Thomas. Technically, as long as you continue to qualify, you can continue to serve.
Right,
until a replacement is
yeah,
found.
you just don't go
No,
on.
you don't have to, but you could, if you were, either director were willing to do that, they could continue to serve until a replacement is found.
Okay.
Now, it would be incumbent on the board to go through the motions of trying to find a replacement, just to keep the public happy, but.
I don't think the public knows. I went to the people that recruited me and I said, hey, I'm looking to get out. Who do you know in the area? And like, they're like, we don't know. And I'm like, this is my social event for the month, is coming here and hanging out with you guys. And this is why I'm completely cool for this long of a meeting.
You gotta get a life.
I know, like, and the only other, yeah.
It's
Go
like
ahead, finish.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah.
I'm pretty sure Jay can confirm this, but we can actually declare the position vacant before January. We can do that in,
Yeah, yes, we would, in fact, we have done similar things in similar situations where we know going in, you know, Thomas's term expires 31st of December. What I would typically do is bring to the board in like October, we'd start that process. Acknowledge the pending vacancy, and then the board authorizes me to start putting the public notices in place so that the time frame is such that in January, they'll have a replacement in place. And so you don't necessarily miss a beat. You don't have to wait until it's technically done because, again, on paper, it's not vacant. The term is ended, but there's still if there's still a qualified candidate, so, but yeah, you can do that. Start the process.
right, so that way, if there is a viable candidate in January, they can step in January.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
And
so,
what we did to deal with that, because that was something that we had a bit of a hiccup, because we're in the process of filling a vacancy right now, is the old language, or our announcements talked about, you know, petitions are due on such and such a date, and there needed to be enough time for me to make sure that signatures were cool. Well, there are no petitions anymore. So our public notice talks about a letter of intent, or a statement of interest, has to be turned in 3 days ahead of the meeting, or the drop dead date, so that I have something to confirm an address for Larry, who's volunteered, to say, okay, that he actually qualifies to serve, which means he's 18 and registered and lives where he says he lives. So we wouldn't allow somebody to walk into the board meeting in January and go, I'll do it.
Although they could.
They could. The board could choose to do that, but you run the risk of, well, unless we know for a fact they qualify, then you can go. And then the other issue too with that, as with the petitioning process, is, you know, whatever process you set up to identify candidates, you know, 3 people file, I don't think you could look at the 3 of them and go, no, we can do better. Let's do it again next month. It's like, no, here's the process. These are the 3 guys. You got the 3 guys. Pick one.
well, we probably don't have to worry about 3 of them. As it turns out, there is a person who did file a petition in Craig's area. It was time-stamped 7 minutes after 5 on the last day.
Bingo. One down. One to
So, you know, there's a fair chance we'll have,
If he's still interested, we could.
well, we might, if he's the only one, I mean, somebody that came up 7 minutes short, that might be reason right there to, we'll have to take him. Anyhow, it's unfortunate, but
So how did you know that somebody filed?
he told me.
Okay.
It's the only way I would know. But
Doesn't sound like he's a candidate you particularly back.
I just said that off the cuff. I don't know this person well. Anybody that's interested in serving should be encouraged to submit petitions. And he, unfortunately, was too much of a procrastinator.
If there are any losers in the city council races that are in these districts, we should contact them.
To
You
move
don't
things,
say.
to move things along, I know we are very chummy, and I love it with this group, but to move things along so that I don't get any more trouble, chair's comments, I'm just gonna bounce real quick. I've had my 10th phone call about property taxes. I had that on last Thursday. I tried to explain the purpose of the district, what the tax base is. He believes that we provide him water, but yet he has no water on his sites. I kind of looked at his area, it's in the valley, so I sent an email to Director Mullally and to the executive board, just so that everyone's aware, just in case someone angry came to the office or came to the meeting, kind of the situation, but it's the normal thing. They looked at their county taxes, saw this, thought, what is this? And then they called the phone number, which happens to be my personal number this year. So I would like that changed for August, like about that, because unless the board wants me to be their help desk on taxes. But other than that, I attended the April 17th meeting, and that's all I got. Items from directors.
I have a request from Director Mullally to circulate some of those prioritization schemes that you've been looking up.
Okay.
So we can start thinking about that going forward.
Yeah, what Director Coates is talking about, some people have methods to evaluate a project quantitatively with scoring, like, does it benefit the public, 0 through 5, and then you, at the end, weight the scores and add them up, so I'll send those around. I'm not saying I like that, because what tends to happen sometimes is people see the final score and they don't like it, so then they go back and start tweaking the spreadsheet. I guess it at least gives you categories to look at. So I'll make a point to do that.
Anything else from directors? I'm going really quick because I know we've been here a while. Like, this rivals one of the longest meetings, and I was on the board with the 6-hour meeting, so I apologize if I think you were also there too, Dan. But but that's kind of my goal right now. Items from admin. Nothing from admin. Items from public.
Just that the hearings for the CNEC plant down at Edgemont, Dewey Burdock thing, will be held in Hot Springs starting Monday morning at 9 o'clock. It's a 5-day hearing.
The what plant?
The CNEC, Corporation of Clean Nuclear Energy, they
Oh.
want
Oh,
to
they're-
uranium down by Craven Canyon. We don't want them to. And they're gonna have a 5-day hearing there, starting Monday.
So they're gonna mine uranium?
They're gonna explore for uranium.
Is that with the drilling and the in situ and that
That
stuff?
is situ leach crap, yeah.
Pump water down, okay. Okay.
And they're really real close to the canyon itself, and they're worried.
Well, I'd be worried.
Yeah.
Well, if I was doing uranium, I'd be worried the president was gonna bomb me.
So that's a different location than the one that,
Yeah, it's not the same location.
right.
And that project, they've had to reapply for permits because they let them all lapse. So they got a 10-year window starting a couple months ago, or like last year. Anyway, that's it.
Talked enough.
Okay.
Okay.
Then thank you for everyone attending.
That was a good one, McGregor.
You were right.
Yeah, I like your,
Long meeting.
don't let